Hello there. It's the 29th day of the month. Welcome to a brand new week and a brand new Monday, of course. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. I do this together with Bernice Abubedu-Lanza. Some choose to call it the B&B show. We call it the AM show. Wherever you are, thank you for making the time to join us. Now, coming up this morning, we're going to be joined for our news review by Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa, Suleimana Brima. He is our guest. That will be coming your way after the news with Pa Kwesi Shando. But then we get into our big stories, and then we're going to be talking about those famous or infamous comments by Odike of the UPP. We all know about it now. But we have a conversation on the sovereignty of the state and how traditional authorities should exercise their scope of power. Oriepa FM remains shut as the Kumasi Traditional Council has shown force, its power, its supremacy over this radio station. Some say the radio station should not have given in or capitulated. But looking at the situation, what else could they have done? We've heard from the GJA and other entities. Well, we get into that issue this morning. That will be our first big story. The second one, also situated in the Ashanti region, has to do with the Council of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, which has abolished the junior common room system of hall management by students on campus. This, of course, follows a clash between Katanga and Continental halls. We've had varied reactions to this. This morning we asked, are these measures sustainable? Can they resolve the violence on campus permanently? Is that the way to go? And what will this also do for student leadership on our campus, at least the KNUST? These are on our menu today. Also stay with us as we're joined by our seasoned guests who will be sharing their thoughts on these issues. Look forward to a conversation as well on climatic changes and how they're impacting Africa, especially. This morning we'll be hosting the GCA Professor Patrick Ferkoyan will be joining us as we talk of that. We also have Drive Safe for you this morning, and we'll be looking at ways of keeping ourselves and others safe on our roads. For all of these conversations, you can join us with your thoughts on these and other issues that we're going to be discussing. The hashtag is AM Show, and when we activate the phone lines at the end of the show, be sure to give us a call. Thank you once more for staying with us. Up next, the news with Pa Kwesi Shando. Stay.
It's a Monday morning, the commencement of a new week, and welcome to the AM News here on the AM Show. My name is Pa Kwesi Shando. So, very first story. Former President John Dramani Mahama has described President Akufo-Addo's government as a scam and the worst in Ghana's Fourth Republic. Mr. Mahama, who spoke at the National Democratic Congress's Lawyers Conference, said the current Western state of the economy must be laid squarely at the doorstep of President Akufo-Addo and Vice President Bawumia.
Our economy is in a dire situation. Our economic fortunes deteriorate with every passing day. And this places our democracy in danger by the stress that it places on our people in respect of their daily survival. Ghana is facing an unprecedented economic tailspin of runaway inflation, which is currently measured at above 30%, a fast depreciating currency trading above 10 cedis to $1 US, an unsustainable debt burden exceeding 90% of GDP, with the inclusion of the recent Bank of Ghana financing of the debts, the Afri-Exim facility recently approved by Parliament, the Sino Hydro loan, and the collateralization of our GET fund and our energy sector levy. Let me add without equivocation, ladies and gentlemen, that this threat to the progress of our dear country is completely self-inflicted by a government that has proved to be the greatest political scam in the history of the Fourth Republic. By the current indices and general hardship Ghanaians are suffering today, the Akufo-Addo and Bawumia NPP government remains the worst ever in the history of our Fourth Republic.
Former President John Mahama also says that Ghanaians must be concerned about what he says is the waning trust in the judicial system.
Recently, so badly has the image of our judiciary deteriorated that many of our citizenry openly make mockery of our justice system and of our justices. The phrase, "go to court," is these days met with derisive laughter, instead of hope that one will truly get justice if he went to the courts. If people are not poking fun about politics and inducements being used to sway the hand of justice in the lower courts, then it is poking fun and making statements about the 7-0 of the unanimous FC. Verdicts which mostly involve cases of a political nature in our Supreme Court. This is an unfortunate but serious development. One of the scariest existential threats to any democracy is when citizens think their judiciary holds no value for them or no use to them. And this is the security threat that the national security apparatus tried to draw the attention of the nation to recently, but was poorly received by the president and his party.
Now, 2020 parliamentary candidate of the governing New Patriotic Party in the West Central constituency has denied being the mastermind of the lockout of the regional youth organizer of the party, Hamid Sana. Supporters of the party, especially youth activists, on Sunday moved to the secretariat and found that there were 3 additional padlocks apart from what was used to lock the office on Saturday. Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam reports that after consultations between the regional youth organizer and some party supporters, the secretariat was broken into and all office equipment carted out and relocated to the West Central Youth Secretariat of the New Patriotic Party.
For the 3rd time in 4 years, the Upper West Regional Youth Organizer of the NPP has been locked out of office. The Upper West Regional Youth Secretariat of the party, before this morning, usually has 3 padlocks locking it. However, officers and party activists who usually sit there during their leisure time got there and met 3 additional padlocks, increasing the number to 6. Accusing fingers are being pointed at one man whose name has only been given as Caesar and the 2020 West Central parliamentary candidate of the New Patriotic Party, Haji Abdu, as the mastermind of the lockout. Baba Wala is the operations director of the Upper West Regional Youth Secretariat.
I've been hearing a lot of names around this, and one key person that we are hearing around this is Haji Aoun. We are told that she's the very person that instigated Chief Dollar, who is the landlord of this place, take the place from us because we are there supporting some other people against his bid to lead the Wala Traditional Council. But then we know nothing about this. We have been trying for the past days. Myself, I have been to family meetings because the name behind it is a wife of my own brother. So we tried settling these issues. But then another name who is called Caesar is the one we are told came and locked this place.
Following some consultations between the regional youth organizer Hamid Sana and some party supporters, they decided to break into the office, pick all valuable items, and relocate to the West Central Youth Office of the party. West Central Constituency Treasurer of the New Patriotic Party, Abdullah Ibrahim Issa, who also doubles as an aide to the 2020 MPP West Central parliamentary candidate Haji Audu, poo-pooed the claim, describing it as wicked and deliberate plan to smear dirt on Haji Audu in order to give her a bad name.
Haji Audu has no knowledge whatsoever with regards to this particular issue of locking up of the Regional Youth Secretariat office. Because 1, she's not the landlord of the facility. She has no relationship with the person who is even the landlord of the facility. the time they were going to contract for that particular office, I don't think Haji Yahum was a mediator or any other person amongst that meeting where they went to solicit to use that particular facility.
He's however hopeful that it won't stick like others previously.
Those people who are peddling this falsehood are the same people that went and locked up that particular office in order to bring her name into disrepute. So it's a baseless accusation that all and sundry should treat with the contempt all that it deserves. She has no knowledge about it.
The Upper West Office block of the Regional Youth Secretariat of the MPP started some 22 years ago as the West Central Youth Secretariat of the NDC, but switched to the MPP after the former was perceived to be in bed with one of the royal gates to the Walla skin. Professor John Evans Atamels, then the flag bearer of the NDC, and his supporters who were on a campaign tour of the region and passing through the Insurance Road, which is closer to the office, was pelted with stones and other objects. Following the rampus, the office was ceded to the MPP. Since then, it has remained the Regional Youth Secretariat of the MPP. Reporting for JoyNews, Rafik Salam. Wow.
The Ghana Ophthalmic Nurses Society, GONS, is asking governments to grant members license to operate private eye centers. President Mark Ejejemfi believes it is crucial in ensuring process to primary eye care and parity among the various eye care professionals in the country. Mr. Ejejemfi has been speaking at the 10th Biennial Conference and Workshop at Ejisu.
Speaking at a workshop, the Deputy Chief Executive Officer of the Public
We'll bring you details later, but the Catholic Bishops' Conference wants the chiefs and people at Kute, a community in the Jasika municipality of the Oti region, to help end child labor in the area. The area has become noted for child labor activities on both cocoa and ginger farms. The bishops say the involvement of traditional authorities will help end the menace in the area. Peter Seno has more in the following report.
In 2021, the Catholic Bishops' Conference and the Caritas program in the Jasican Diocese inaugurated a committee whose task is to end child labor in farming communities in the diocese, which covers almost the entire Oti region. Reverend Father Pius Biamse of the Good Shepherd Parish at Jasican is the lead advocate for ending child labor in the diocese. According to him, it is difficult to measure success over just a year, but some progress has been made.
It is difficult to measure our success because after the program, everybody would have gone to their communities, so you don't know what is going on there. But the good thing is that we have been able to form 2 study groups in Guama, and this year we have formed 4 more. So we want the children themselves to become our advocates. So we visit them, and then whatever message we have, we tell them, we involve them, and they continue to spread the news.
Nana Nyamiche is the representative of the chief at Kute. According to him, having personally sent 2 parents to the Social Welfare and Community Development Unit for child labor concerns, the traditional authority has banned children from staying up after 8 p.m. to ensure they study and become useful individuals.
As a traditional, we have initiated some bylaws, most especially at funeral grounds. We sack those children from there, and even if it is around 8, 9, we don't need them. We don't call them to funeral grounds or something like that. So those are the laws that we set to stop that. And secondly, if there's a teenage pregnancy or something like that, we call the parents and we advise them for the children to go back to school. And even if they give birth, we advise the parents to take the child from the teenager so that she will continue schooling.
Reverend Father Pius Biamse believes the involvement of the traditional authority in the fight against child labor would yield the necessary results.
And then we get the chiefs involved. As we said today, if the chiefs say this, if they make their own policies, and assemblymen make their policies, I think that should be binding on the communities, and that's what we should pursue.
Emilia Gbedua is the Jasikan Municipal Director for Social Welfare and Community Development. She wants the support from groups and individuals to enable her outfits carry out more community sensitization since child delinquency in the municipality is on the increase. Millicent Edubwame is the OT Regional Girls Education Officer. She is calling on parents to support children who get pregnant to return to school, as the region has succeeded in getting 183 girls back to school from only 400 communities.
All children, especially girls who have been gotten pregnant, they have to come back to school. That is why we were able to get 183 girls returning with pregnancy without fear, because there's education has been given to teachers and then the parents. We did a lot of community sensitization. It's still ongoing. And so we are saying that parents who have their children being pregnant, sometimes no fault theirs of theirs, we should encourage them to come back to school. They should take their children and care for the babies that they have gotten, and the girls should come back to school for them to continue their education.
Peter Senu for JoyNews.
Well, let's return to our earlier story where the Ghana Ophthalmic Nurses Society is asking government to grant members license to operate private eye centers.
Mr. Ejejemfi said this at the 10th Biennial Conference and Workshop at Ejiso under the theme Ophthalmic Nurses, a Voice to Lead in the Universal Eye Health Coverage, Respect Our Right to Private Practice. He observes the lack of job description has hindered the career progression of members.
Of eye care professionals in Ghana, they are the frontiers of eye health in all areas of health delivery in the country. That's from the national to the remotest village.
Sponsorship packages for members pursuing specialist training at the Ghana College of Nurses and Midwives and provision of the needed logistics and equipment were also expressed by the association.
Ministry of Health, HIFRA, and any other agencies concerned to expedite action on ensuring that ophthalmic nurses who wish to operate private eye centers are given the license as pertain to other eye care professionals. We are appealing to Ghana Health Service and Ministry of Health as a matter of urgency to implement the newly prepared job description for ophthalmic nurses so that the job grade from ophthalmic nurse up to the last job grade of chief ophthalmic nurse is put on the payroll or pay slip of members of the society. We call on our mother association, JNMA, to assist us in getting our job description implemented. This is because many of our members have qualified to be appointed to the deputy chief, but because our job description has not been implemented, such members are marking time on the principal grade.
Ophthalmological Society of Ghana lent their support to the association's request, but called for enhanced regulation to ensure best practices. Dr. Jifa Ayisibuatin is treasurer.
It's morally right for ophthalmic nurses who are clinically trained and skilled in the evaluation and management of eye conditions, and who also work closely with ophthalmologists to also do so. It is our belief that if excellent monitoring and supervision is done for all private practices, so that practitioners stay within their scope of service, this request should not be denied.
Mona Lisa Frimpong reporting.
Now to a very last story, a newly built pro-poor health facility has been opened for the people of Bole Bamboi to reduce maternal mortalities in over 80 villages across the area. The 100-bed hospital project, spearheaded by Dr. David Mensah, a native of the district, with support from international partners, is to, among other things, bring healthcare delivery closer to the people who used to travel several kilometers to the district capital to seek for healthcare. And Asabet has more in the following report.
With the goal of reducing mother and infant mortalities in over 80 villages in the northern part of the country, the Liata Hospital project was conceived. The project, which was only a dream in the year 1972, is today a reality 50 years down the lane. Dr. David Mensah, who is the Na Tibalakala, the Jasihene of the more traditional council, is the brain behind this project.
This is a dream come true, and it is a very happy occasion for me because I have a memory of the past. My father developed a hernia, and it became a strangulated hernia, and my father died as a result of it. My sister, Abena Kara, died when she wanted to deliver her child. This hospital, I have named it Layata in our language, meaning rescue us. If this hospital was here, perhaps my father would not have died for me to suffer so much. My sister would have been alive today.
The state-of-the-art pro-poor Liata Model Hospital, situated at Carpenter, a community along the Bamboiwa Highway, was funded by the Northern Empowerment Association and the Ghana Rural Integrated Development with support from international partners. Dr. Mensah used the opportunity to thank the people who played key roles in raising the funds to make this dream a reality.
I am so thrilled that many people have stood with me to work for this thing to come to pass. In fact, I want to thank you all.
Dr. Jennifer Wilson is the Director of International Partnership and Canadian Consultant for Family and Emergency Medicine at the Liata Hospital. She noted that the facility is here to help save the number of people, particularly women, who lose their lives due to the absence of a facility to provide them with care.
It was 15 years ago that you chiefs and queen mothers welcomed us with open arms into your villages. While we were in your villages, we saw with our eyes and we heard with our ears how your people have suffered. You told us of the women who died in childbirth and of the children who were lost to infectious diseases. Today, that dream that you, the sons and daughters of this land, are standing on your own is come true.
Member of Parliament for Bole Bamboi constituency, Alhaji Suleimana Yusuf Ori, couldn't hide his joy as the 100-bed capacity hospital would complement quality healthcare delivery of the area.
What we are seeing today is the clamors of their intervention in the area of health. A very magnificent, beautiful, one in town, 100-bed hospital for my community. I am indeed proud that as a member of Parliament for this area, one of the things that has happened during my reign is this beautiful project.
Minister for Health and Member of Parliament for the Boya Mankarigu constituency, Alhaji Asei Seni, on his part, acknowledged that the project will bring enormous benefits to the people of the area and the country as a whole.
Undoubtedly, this project will bring enormous benefits to the people of Carpenter and Ghana as a whole. This project brings me joy as it's one of the most important and bold strides taken to bridge healthcare infrastructure between the southern and northern belts of the country.
The good news, however, for the people beyond this beautiful edifice is the fact that the community is said to have an additional facility which will serve as a center of excellence for research for university students.
We want to give you the gift of a training center for education and research. The Leata Education and Research Center will be on these very grounds, and it will be a center of excellence.
Anas Sabit, Joy News, Carpenter.
That's all for the bulletin this morning. My name is Pakwisi Shandov. I leave you in the company of Benjamin and Bernice.
Thank you for staying with us. Time now for the news review right here, and we'll be joining the conversation, Suleiman Brahima, Executive Director for the Media Foundation for West Africa. He is our guest, and he is already on, as always, very punctual. Good morning, Mr. Brahima. How are you this Monday morning, and how are you feeling at the start of the week?
Good morning, Ben. Thank you for having me. Well, it appears as though it will be a good week, and we look forward to having a productive week.
It appears it's going to be a good week. It's been pretty wet these last few days. In fact, I was drenched in rainwater on Saturday when I went jogging. It really, I was soaked in rain. But how's the previous week been for you as we usher in a new one?
Well, it was quite productive. Series of meetings here and there, reflections, of course, about what is happening in our country and its implications for what we do. Because certainly the economic crisis and all that we're going through has implications on the environment that we work in, on press freedom, on media sustainability, and all those things. So last week was mainly a lot of reflections with a team on going forward and exploring what the situation is in the other countries that we work in. So it was a lot more of reflections and getting things going.
Let's take a quick swipe at a developing matter which we are looking at today as one of our big stories, on which you shared your thoughts a few days ago, the Oyeripa FM situation. We've heard some legal luminaries, among others, say, look, the chiefs are representative of something. We've heard the likes of Professor Ransford Jampo say, look, there are some instances where our legal system hasn't penetrated yet. And when there are issues, it is the chiefs who stand in and do the right thing. He cites in his latest piece, for example, that, look, in 2008, it took the intervention of some chiefs in the country to forestall political disaster. They talk about the role chiefs play, but then there's also the bit about chiefs, wandering into galamsey, chiefs engaging in politics, which they shouldn't per the 1992 Constitution. And of course, maybe taking upon themselves powers that they are not clothed with. We have the Oyeripa FM situation. We've heard from the GJA, we've heard from the NMC, among others. Looking at the dynamics, some also say, like Professor Jampo, that, look, why did you even comply? You should have just respectfully ignored, like Prof says, what they said and go ahead. But by capitulating, you have showed yourself unfit to be part of the fourth estate. How do you digest all of these, discussions?
Well, for the station to have said we are not going to comply would be an act of foolhardiness. It is certainly impossible to say that you're going to resist a fiat from Menchia in Kumasi. And of course, that wouldn't even be in the interest of all of us when institutions begin to disregard and disrespect the authority of traditional leaders. As I said last week, sometimes even if the elderly go wrong, there's a way of dealing with it. And that way does not include defying and bringing the institution into disrepute. And as I said, even in terms of physically, there's no way a station can say, Menchia says you must shut down in Kumasi, and we're going to defy it, unless, of course, you are prepared for the consequences, which would include anything from physical violence to, damage of equipment and a lot more that could happen. So it was absolutely not going to be possible for the radio station to have said, look, Menchia has expressed his view, and we're going to do what we like. I share the opinion, and I made it quite clear from last week that I didn't think that what the traditional authorities in Kumasi did was right in terms of shutting down a radio station legally. They are not clothed with the powers to do that. But subsequently, I've listened to what Odike is supposed to have said on Oirepa FM, and I kept asking myself, indeed, what was really wrong? This is a citizen of the area. This is somebody who clearly shows some reverence to traditional authorities and believes that if Nananom were to act, the illegal mining activities that were destroying the water bodies, the environment, and so on in that area would not be happening because Nananom are powerful. And he cites the example of the late Ofinsohene, that when he said there was not going to be galamsey in his area, there was no galamsey happening. So it was, for me, in one way, a testimony to the powers that our chiefs willed, and a confession to say, or sort of a testimony to say, if our chiefs want this thing to stop, it will stop because they are powerful. But to the extent that these things are happening, and then chiefs are now, blaming politicians for these activities, is an act of they not perhaps assuming their responsibility and all of that. Yes, he said it in a tone that may be said to be disrespectful, a tone that may be said to be demeaning of the authorities of Menchia, and also, of course...
Do you agree with those who run that commentary that he was disrespectful? Do you agree?
Well, to the extent that we hold our chiefs in a certain, position, or, for example, as I keep saying, even if there's a matter that I feel my father is going wrong or hasn't done the right thing, I may express it in a certain way. But if I use a certain tone, in the end, I could be said to have been disrespectful to my father or to an elderly person that I may be engaging with. So I believe he said the right things. There was absolutely nothing wrong with what he said. But of course, if you listen to him, and it's understandable because what is happening to the environment is quite devastating. So it's understandable that someone like him would speak with the kind of emotion that he expressed himself. And to that extent, yes, people may say, oh, you shouldn't have, expressed yourself the way you did. You could have used the same words, but in a tone that was somber, and then people wouldn't have said, look, or the chiefs wouldn't have been as angry as they are. But I think that indeed, as far as the issues he raised are concerned, Nananom really have to sit up. Otherwise, we cannot but say that they are complicit in what is happening.
Finally, Suleimana, another very topical issue. Mr. President has been speaking in recent times and addressing the Yagbongra and others, and you could enlarge that to say the people of Ghana. He speaks about how the people in that community have voted time without number for the opposition NDC, about 8 terms running. And then he looks at their roads and others and says, I'm here and now you come to me, the people of Yendi, telling me about this and that and that. You're lucky to have me as your president. If not, well, who knows? Some people have taken that into different realms and say, wait a minute, Mr. President, we're lucky to have you as president with all that is going on. But some also insist that, look, he is doing the right things. What do you make of that? Was it wrong for the president to have said, you're lucky to have me as president?
I think it was an unnecessary comment to have said that. I believe that the president should also count himself lucky for being a leader over the Ghanaian people. It is the Ghanaian people who gave him that opportunity. He did not go and buy that title from London and then come and impose it on us. It is we, the Ghanaian people, who decided to give him that opportunity to be the leader of our country, which then enables him to fly in luxurious private jets that you and I cannot afford to fly in, which allows him to have all the security detail and all the protocol around him. So I think that it was not the right comment to make. Beyond that also, to suggest that because a particular group of people have been voting for a particular political party over the period, for them to be complaining about this development or that development, it's quite something that is curious, as if to suggest that the people who have been voting for his party over the period have had all their issues resolved. Ashanti region has consistently been voting for the MPP. What is happening in Ashanti region? We know about MPs who are being chased away by their constituents, including the majority leader in parliament, who has since been in parliament. I mean, he's been in parliament for maybe close to 3 decades now. And it's been on the ticket of the MPP. And yet we have people, and this is Kumasi, metropolitan. Swami is part of Kumasi metropolitan area. And yet his constituents were chasing him away for lack of development. We saw the recent one last week where constituents were chasing their MP with cutlasses. I grew up in the Ashanti region and I know quite a number of places within the region. I don't think that the region has all that it needs. In the eastern region, well, people talk about Chibi and how the town has been given a complete facelift under President Akufo-Addo. But, I mean, that's Chibi. There are other places in the eastern region. Are we saying that the roads have all been done, the schools have all been built, all communities have electricity and all of that? The answer is no. I don't think that any part in Ghana has had the full complement of development. And even in the West, where we say they are developed, I'm sure there are still issues that they are dealing with. So to have suggested that, well, it is because, or it is quite surprising that you've been voting for one party that has been in power for a certain period of time and still you lack certain developments, I think it's really an untenable comment. You know, because as I've said, there have been parties or areas where the MPP has been voted for consistently, and yet there are still a lot of development challenges in those areas. So I don't know the basis on which he said what he said.
Let's get into the papers. Daily Graphic, we'll start from there. Overaged aircraft face ban, measures to ensure crew passenger safety. I'll bring you some details of that. I'm cooperating with OSP investigations. Colonel Damwa says so after having said that this is all a witch hunt and all of that. Cashew still among top 10 non-export traditional earners. Story on page 53. On the back page, Algeria 2023 Chan qualifier. Bania Suraj win day for Galaxies. I'll bring you some snippets of that when I'm wrapping with the paper. But let's look at this one on page 16. I will start with the one on page 3. So starting from the front page, overaged aircraft face ban, measure to ensure crew passenger safety. And the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority is to ban aircraft that are above 20 years from using the country's airspace. The measure is meant to, among other things, ensure the safety of passengers and crew, as well as their comfort while en route to and from Ghana. Consequently, the GCAA will soon issue a new directive to stop airlines from importing or flying commercial aircraft that are 20 years and above in the country. When the directive is issued, Ghana will join a growing list of countries such as Nigeria, Uganda, Thailand, Bolivia, Malaysia, Mongolia, and Turkey that have imposed age ceilings for commercial aircraft. Why I find this interesting, Suleimana, is recently I had to read a lot on the back of what Ibrahim Mahama, not the brother of the former president, but the artist, was doing, bringing in aeroplanes, aircraft, and using them as libraries and all of that. Beautiful gesture. But I also found out that depending on what model of plane and depending on what the structure is, how big, and other factors, it could go even 30 years and it would still be roadworthy or flight-worthy, so to speak. And sometimes even when they are done, they are then cannibalized. Their parts are used for other aircraft because this equipment tends to be pretty expensive. So there are pros and cons of this, but we also admit that just like we say with our vehicles on the roads, when these aircraft reach their lifelines, we must not be bringing them into the country. Your quick take.
Well, it's a very, very commendable action being taken by the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, a precautionary measure, which is really commendable. Our airspace has been accident-free for, God knows how long, which is really, really commendable. But the reality is that if you fly some of these international airlines that come into Ghana, I've had the occasion of flying in British Airways to London a number of times, Delta Airlines to New York a number of times, and the United Airlines have flown it also to the US a couple of times, and I've done the others, Brussels and so on. And quite clearly, you could see that the planes that are deployed on our routes are obviously old planes. When you sit in an old aircraft, no one tells you that this is an old aircraft. Everything shows that it's an old aircraft. And yet, if you're going to the US and you decide to go through London, from London to New York, you would see that you are in an aircraft that is really, really or fairly new. So you ask yourself, why is it that consistently we are having, aircrafts that are quite old, even if they are airworthy? There are certain services that it's either your seat is not reclining well and you have to manage within the 6 hours or 11 hours, depending on where you are coming from. And it really doesn't help. In our country, Ben, it's literally the same. People will tell you that if you are going to, let's say, Bolgatanga or any of those parts of the country and you decide to go by STC, for example, quite often they deploy the old buses there. Even though you expect that because of the distance, well, they should have some of the, flashiest and newest buses going there. You would have sometimes the oldest buses deploying. So it's as if, well, they look at how wealthy the people at the destination are, and then decide which type of airline or which type of flight or plane.
So there's discrimination.
So I think it's a very, very positive step that the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority is taking. I remember there was a time a BA was warned about the kind of aircraft they use for this route, the Accra-London route. Last week or so, I read about, is it Delta Airline having a particular plane that is deployed on the New York-Accra route also being banned by the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. So kudos to them. I think they are doing a great job. And we look forward to seeing that their measures are taking shape.
Let's look at some other stories very quickly. I'm cooperating with OSP Investigations, Colonel Damwase's story on page 16, and I'll bring in the one with Cashew and the sporting story as well, so we can wrap with the paper. So let's quickly get there. Page 16 of the paper. The Commissioner of the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, that's the GRA, Colonel Kwejo Damwa, retired, has said he is fully cooperating with the Office of the Special Prosecutor in investigations into some aspects of the operations of the division. He also says, the Special Prosecutor has the right to investigate, but I am confident that at the end of the day, the truth will stand and my integrity will remain intact. I have not contravened any laws of the land and therefore I have nothing to fear, he posited. But while he says this, he's also gone after the Special Prosecutor and his work, in some ways referencing it as a witch hunt and something personal rather than something that is of public interest. How do you react to that? I mentioned some time back that Martin Amidu had said, look, the Special Prosecutor is on a wild goose chase. This isn't something he should follow. But I've heard the likes of, I think, Kofi Bentel and others say, no, the Special Prosecutor is on the right trajectory and Martin Amidu should shove off and let him do his work. What do you make of it?
Well, first of all, I think Colonel Damwa is speaking too much, and that is quite curious. If an institution that you heard is being investigated and you know you have not done anything wrong, allow the investigations to go on. In the end, at the end of the day, if there is nothing implicating you, you would be vindicated. But since the La Bianca issue, he comes out talking, describing the special prosecutor as a small boy, and all manner of comments. And for me, that is quite curious. If there is nothing wrong, if you've not committed any wrongdoing, then what the special prosecutor is doing perhaps is to help you. Because if there are other subordinates or other people in the institution who may have done something wrong, and at the end of the day, they are exposed, that's something that should help you. But the way he's commenting and talking is really, really quite curious. And it makes one wonders, what is it that he knows that we don't know? Because if there's nothing to hide, why should you be bothered talking that much as he is doing? So for me, the special prosecutor has started off well, and we all should give him the support that is needed, even if at the end of the day, it turns out to be what Martin Amidu said. So what? I mean, it's important that matters that are curious are brought up. We all know that there is a lot that happens at the ports. That one is something that cannot be disputed. And it has not been just now. Under President Mills, if you remember, Anas did some work at the ports. Yes. Under President Mahama, there were issues at the ports in terms of this whole issue about auctioning of people's items. It's been a major scandalous thing since, President Kufuor's era. In terms of auction cars and who get to buy them and so on, it's always been an issue. So certainly there is a problem with our ports. And of course, with the customs division of our GRE and how they go about doing their work. So let's allow the special prosecutor to do his work. Let us give him the support that he deserves. But the way Colonel Damwa is speaking is really, really quite curious. When people begin to act this way, it even adds to the suspicion. What is it that he wants to hide? If there's nothing to hide, let's wait for the special prosecutor to do his work. Comply. Why do you need to tell us that you would comply? You don't need to tell us that you comply. Of course, you have an option. You don't have an option to comply or otherwise. So why tell us that you would comply? I think he's just speaking too much.
He is speaking too much. Page 53 now, very quickly to that one. Here we go. So let me just check. Yes, it's supposed to be on page 53, but where is it on page 53? That's the issue. It has to do with the cashew bit, not to be found on page 53. Let me bring you the story on the back page of the paper, and then maybe later I'll find that one. I'll fish it out. Daniel Afriye Bania and Seydou Suraj emerged heroes at the Cape Coast Stadium yesterday when their goals gave the Black Galaxies, the local Black Stars of Ghana, a head start in the first leg of the Championship for African Nations qualify against the Chan Eagles of Nigeria. Bania expertly converted a penalty in the 46th minute to break the deadlock in the tension-packed match, while Suraj's 85th minute tap-in was enough to electrify the stadium with spontaneous drumming, singing, and dancing. And so they've kick-started this on a very good note. But let's look at the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Don't tax offering, tithe in churches. Reverend Frimpong Manso, Reverend Professor Paul Frimpong Manso says so. Hackman Owusu-Ajuman loses wife. Our condolences to him. And then KNUST students face dismissal if, that's according to the governing council, and 2 die in Gori crash. Let's take a quick look at the stories on pages 10 and 17. So the president of the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, Reverend Paul Frimpong Manso, has said he does not support the call for government to tax offering and tithe collected by the various Christian bodies. Rather, he said government should strengthen the GRE to identify churches that operate businesses on the side and tax them to increase the country's revenue mobilization for national development. Then tie that into the story on page 17. Any student who participates in the organization of what is described as morale and or procession will be dismissed, the Governing Council of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology has stated. Additionally, with effect from the 2023-2024 academic year, the junior common room system of hall management by students has also been abolished. Two stories, one bordering on education, the other one bordering on taxation and our churches. Quick reflections, Sule.
Well, I think that the issue about not taxing tithes is in order. I mean, it's a religious thing, and yes, we are struggling to raise revenues, but I don't think that that will be the way to go. I fully endorse the proposal that, if anything at all, businesses that are being operated by churches and making profits are the ones that should be taxed, instead of maybe seeing them as part of the churches and the money they make as part of whatever church monies that ought not to be taxed. And to that extent, I fully endorse the view that has been expressed by the head of the charismatic churches. So yeah, that would be my view on that one.
Okay. How about the one to do with, let me just get that story. So the one to do with the KNUST students, JCR out of the picture and all that. How do you respond? Right thing to do, and no morale, no charging, no processions.
Certainly that's not the way to go. I don't think that our university authorities should begin to adopt measures that are intended to bring up timid students. Leadership is important, and one way by which students can, learn the phenomenon of leadership is their participation in the management of halls. I was a member of the JCR of the Kwafu Hall, and I was a member of the General Assembly at the university at our time, and I remember at our time, people like Samuel Wuku, Okujeto Ablakwa, Justice Rimsai, Adweshia, a lot of the friends who are in politics today, we all started when we were at the General Assembly. Of course, some of us decided to go into other areas, and it's not surprising to find former friends and colleagues, or still friends and colleagues like Samuel Uku, Okujeto Ablakwa, and all the colleagues who ended up in politics, doing the politics. Of course, there are sometimes issues with our politics today, and anytime I talk to these friends, I express those concerns. But that's where it all starts from. So to say that JCRs shouldn't be part of hall management, I think that is really untenable. Because students, how do you say students at the university level cannot be part of managing the affairs of the hall? I mean, JCRs are so critical in the management of halls. We should look at the root cause of the issues. I don't think that the problem is their participation in JCR, in JCR activities. I don't think it is the question of whether they get to be involved in what is called morale sessions or not. It is the whole issue of the moral decadence in our society. That is what we have to look at. The fact that we have a constitution that envisaged that for these reasons, let us have a national commission for civic education. And from one government to the other, that organization has been made dormant. The organization that is supposed to inculcate the right values and ethical things in our citizenry is not being funded. It is being funded to a large extent by foreigners. So to some extent, we are saying that, look, people from the West should be concerned about how Ghanaians imbibe the right attitudes and morals than our own government. If there is one particular institution that has to be funded properly in this country, it is the NCCE. That is not done. And look at what our leaders are doing. If you exhibit these kinds of conduct as the president, allowing anything to go, and as somebody said, making corruption attractive, at a time when people are suffering, students are lying, kids are lying on their bellies to write, a problem that can be resolved with just about maybe 1 million Ghana cedis. That is not happening, and we are interested in having our V8s, flying in luxurious private jets, chartering private jets for a single MP to come down and vote, and so on and so forth. That's the kind of country we are building.
Okay.
And for me, that is the source. If we don't deal with the root cause of the problem, look, it doesn't matter whether you say they should be part of JCR management of halls. It doesn't matter whether you say there shouldn't even be SRCs in our universities. It doesn't matter if you say there shouldn't be morale sessions. There will still be problems on our campuses. What is important is to deal with the moral issues that we are facing.
Let's wrap with just a few stories from three papers, but some of them already mentioned, so I'll just rehash them. Ghana is lucky to have me, according to President Akufo-Addo. There's also runs for Jampo. Chiefs do not have the power to order shutdown of radio stations. We've already looked at these. But Forson nails Chief of Staff, and he alleges, he spoke on Joy FM, alleging that the Chief of Staff received a whopping 240 million Ghana cedis, of which 90% was used to purchase vehicles. That is what Dr. Cassiel Forson says. But quick stories from the Daily Guide newspaper and the Finder newspaper. Government has achieved a lot despite odds. That's according to Vice President Bawumia. Will help Ghana stabilize economy. That's according to the IMF chief. And Ghana gets Genius app or Genial app for SIM card registration. There is also EcoBank Ghana gets high GCR ratings with positive outlook. As some people may have seen the latest Fitch ratings and may have contemplated a few things. But bottom line, when your country is downgraded, all the banks will also be downgraded. And so Fitch downgraded Ghana, so the banks were also downgraded. It had nothing to do with their individual performance. That's the bottom line. But the GCR ratings are more reflective of the broader picture, where EcoBank and others, actually, some of them get A scores. So we must contemplate that. But quick reflections on these stories, and it's a wrap.
Well, the Vice President talking about what has been achieved. I don't know if there's any government that hasn't achieved anything in our history. Every government comes in and does what has to be done. But certainly, as far as this government is concerned, I don't think what has been achieved is commensurate with the borrowing that has happened and the levels of debt that this country has been plunged into. And those are the matters that we should be dealing with. I'm quite interested in the story about the allocation to the Chief of Staff's office and how that money was spent, because the claim is that a considerable amount from that money, or a considerable part of that amount, was used in purchasing vehicles.
So 90%, allegedly, 90% of the 240 million.
Yes, I think it's important that independent journalists go into this story and bring out the story so that we can really verify what the MP has said. Sometimes some of these stories, important as they are, depending on where they come from, we end up politicizing them, and in the end, it just gets away from the public radar like that. But some of these stories are really, really important, and I would encourage independent journalists to go into the matter to bring a comprehensive story that would educate all of us. And I'll be mentioning this to my colleagues at the Fourth Estate, because it's a story that is of significant interest and has a lot of implications for our country. So, it's not just this story. There have been quite a number that come up. And then once it comes up from either an NDC MP or MPP MP, it just becomes a matter of a partisan debate. And then within a matter of a day or two, it's gone. And sometimes the implications are quite important, to the extent that we need to always interrogate them properly and independently.
So let it not just be political fodder, but let's investigate it to its logical conclusion and see what emanates from there. But thank you so much, Suleimana, for animating our Monday morning, joining us for the news review. And we wish you a splendid week.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a great week as well.
All right. Suleimana Brahma, the affable fellow, Executive Director of Media Foundation for West Africa, he joined us for the news review. But up next, we're serving you the sports. Of course, definitely we'll bring you some scoop in terms of Black Galaxies trouncing the Chan Eagles of Nigeria by 2-0. Expect more coming your way in sports. Stay.
Disowned by the Ghana Boxing Authority on the eve of a contest in a new weight division, but he steps in the ring and secures a scoring draw. That is the story of Richard Kome as the Ghanaian begins a new journey in his boxing career. It is never over until it is over. Erling Haaland struck 3 times as Manchester City recover from 2-goal deficit to beat Crystal Palace. Plus, is Ghana's hosting of the Africa Games 2023 under threat? This and many more coming up in the next 15 to 20 minutes with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah. Let's start with boxing. Joseph Pedraza and Richard Kome threw over 1,100 punches as they battled to a split draw in a 10-round bout at 140 pounds in Oklahoma on Saturday night. Pedraza won the first card 97-93, Kome took the second 96-94, while the third judge scored it 95-95. Let's do some football now. Ghana Black Galaxies defeated the Super Eagles B of Nigeria by 2-0 at the Cape Coast Sports Stadium. 2 goals in the second half from Hassan Oktio, Afriye Bania and Sedi Suraj ensured the home-based Super Eagles have a tall order in the return leg in Abuja on Saturday.
Really impressed with Martins Babatunde, the chap in the 15th shirt, and of course partnering Afis Nosiru. They've been really superb.
Hassan comes forward, Awako turns and delivers a drive. Blocked first time. Mo Alassan's attempt and a third opportunity, and it's a penalty.
Yeah, we look at Mo Alassan, did very well, linking up with Awako with that shot, not the best of shot, but not well dealt with from the defense of Nigeria. But then again, Suraj.
It's all on Bania's shoulders now. He delivers nicely.
Pure class. Just look at the composure and the confidence. He knows where to plant the ball, sends the goalkeeper the wrong way.
Nkrumah Kosa lays on the pass. Picked up nicely by Jenim Boateng, but it's brought down. Game will continue. Dennis Kosa now pushes one forward. Here's a Bagner. Manages to get him across. Oh! That would have been daylight robbery.
This is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Wonderful goal. And what a cross from David Abagna. And then some of the Ghana legends can't help it than to clap. Now, look at the build-up again. And so Umar Bashiru with that pass, and Kosa had seen the run of David Abagna. Abagna with a one-time pass with a left foot, and Seydou Suraj will arrive in the box with that pace and had to push in the rebound. Just look at Seydou Suraj arriving in the box.
Let's go to the English Premier League. Manchester United won their second successive game under their new manager, Erik ten Hag, as they defeated Southampton 1-0, courtesy of a goal from Bruno Hernandez. There were also wins for Chelsea, who were 10 men, but still managed to secure a 2-1 win in their game as well against Leicester City. We'll go for the highlights of the matches that were played in the Premier League over the weekend. Apart from this, Liverpool also won 9-0 against Bournemouth, and they equaled a record of a huge margin of scoreline victory that has ever been secured in the Premier League. In La Liga, Barcelona also won 4-0 against Real Valladolid. It was Real Madrid were also 2-1 victors. Now let's talk about the Africa Games 2023, and we are exactly 12 months away to the Africa Games to be staged in Ghana. 54 countries, 25 disciplines, 5,000 athletes are expected to assemble in Ghana to compete for honors. But how ready is Ghana to host the rest of the continent? Joy Sports' Fentiu Tahiru has been visiting the facilities expected to host the game and put together this report. And this is how we wrap up AM Sports here with me, Muftau Nabila Abdullah.
The opening ceremony of the 2023 African Games is just 12 months away. As you can tell in the background, workers are working day and night to ensure this is ready for the competition next year. Out of the 23 different sporting events that will be held for the 2023 African Games, as many as 21 of them would be held at the Boteman Sports Complex. The ultimate question, of course, remains whether contractors will be done in time for the competition. At the moment, construction appears to be at the starting phase, and there are fears work will not be completed in time for the start of the games. But chairman of the local organizing committee, Dr. Ofosu Asare, remains confident Ghana will be ready in 12 months' time.
That's the hope of everyone, all of us here, the LOC members, the minister, and I'm sure every Ghanaian is expecting us to finish and be able to host the games next August, and that's the time. Together with the African Union, we have the timetable for that. That is the hope. We are looking forward to getting the needed funding to get a job going, to get a job done. And the funding doesn't come from us, it comes from government. And recently we might have heard about the 750 million Exim Bank loan that the government managed to secure, the parliament approved, and out of that we are to have 140 million going towards infrastructure.
Government in Tripoli
let me also say that that's for infrastructure. We haven't even looked at operational costs, procurement, and whatever. So a lot of money is involved if you are hosting the games, and you must be prepared to put in money. You know, if you have money in your building, you can even build during the day, building them. You have two shifts, have workers coming in and all that. You can beef up your staff
in northern Ethiopia say they've taken control of the town of Waldea in the neighbouring Amhara region. They're reportedly advancing on the manufacturing hub of Desi, about 200 kilometres away.
The time scheduled for the games.
I've reassured Ghanaians, both in Parliament, by delivering a statement and that the games will come on and answer questions. As long as government is concerned, if there is no any force majeure, any major thing like pandemic, the games will come on. Because we are ready and we are working to ensure that the games come on, and government is committed to it.
The Youth and Sports Minister, Mustafa Youssef, has an even bigger vision for the Boteman Sports Complex once completed.
What government is looking is not just for the games, but we are looking beyond the games, where we have a sports of excellence center, or a center where we can host any international games. Commonwealth Games have never come to Africa. Is there opportunity that once we finish with this infrastructure, we can even put in bid in the near future for Commonwealth Games? It's possible once we're able to put this infrastructure in place. And the benefit will live beyond just these African Games.
Ghana was awarded the rights to host the 13th African Games back in 2018. At the time, the country conceived the idea of hosting the games in 3 cities, namely Accra, Cape Coast and Kumasi. But the African Union Commission, the organization in charge of the games, kicked against the multi-city approach, preferring to concentrate the games in one city, in line with previous traditions. In November 2020, after months of delays, government finally announced plans to construct a 50,000 Olympic stadium at Boteman to serve as venue for the games.
The Boteman structure, whose construction begins today, will be equipped with the following facilities in accordance with international standards and will be capable of hosting any international competition.
But 8 months later, those plans were shelved, and government instead adopted a hybrid approach that will now see the Legon Sports Stadium serving as the center of the games. This very spot will be where all of the starting blocks will be, especially for the shorter distance races like the 100 meters. All records that will be set, that will be broken, will start right here. And for now, as you can see, it looks like just sun, with the tracks yet to be fixed. As to when that will be done remains a big question. This will be the venue of some of the aquatic activities. 2 swimming pools, one of it a warm-up pool, the other competition pool with seating capacity of up to 1,000 people will be here. There will be 5 tennis courts, including a center court that can seat up to 1,000 spectators. There will be 3 multi-sports halls, which will house indoor sporting events such as basketball, badminton, table tennis, volleyball, among others. But the work that remains to be done here is enormous. The majority of the work on the Legon Stadium has gone into fixing the seats, but vital aspects such as the competition tracks and adjoining facilities remain a long way from completion. Construction on the all-new 8-lane warm-up track has started, and work appears to be progressing steadily. But at the time of Joy Sports' visit, construction had paused. Work is also progressing on the rugby field situated on the Legon campus, venue for the rugby competition in the African Games. The Liman Hostel on campus will accommodate the athletes and will serve as the athletes' village, but even those require major upgrades to meet the competition standards.
I inspect every month just to make sure the contractors are on site. And so far, all the 3 contractors doing upgrading the games village, because the halls are there, but you need to put certain facilities, heating facilities for hot water and warm water. These are requirements of the games. So you need to put air conditioning. Those facilities don't have that. We have to provide that. The contractors are on site. You need to have security. If you go to the games village now, the security fence is done. You need to have a restaurant where they will converge and have. We are developing, so you have opportunity to visit all that. You need to have a medical center where injuries and minor injuries can be treated. All these are things that we are working on, and I'm very positive that we are going to. It's not only Ghana, even Birmingham. If you have opportunity of going to Birmingham, their facility, they couldn't complete all before the games.
History, the African Games history is replete with occasions where some countries had to shift. Some of the games had to shift to either the following year, 6 months addition and all that. So you have that window in the worst case scenario. We have that window. But because of the Olympics, we are hoping that 2024 will be, we know that 2024 will be very busy. Of course. So, but for that, we would have said, okay, after all, there's 2024. What's the big deal if we are not able to finish in 2023 or host it in 2023? But because of that, so it appears that we have our back to the wall, and we must try as much as possible to find money to finish the facilities. Even in the worst case scenario, we still will need money to use for the existing facilities. Let me give you a case in point. The Independence Square. Yeah. If you have money, you can put in temporary structures and have facilities there and host the games.
Games village.
Yes. Here, for instance, we need to, if we're going to use it, but we need to have money to also refurbish. You know, the lavatory and all those places. They need a bit of upgrading. And anywhere like Bukom and all those places, wherever even you want to raise temporary structures, you need money. You do. Yeah, so that is where the money issues is extremely cardinal. But I have every belief that as a nation, we will not let this opportunity slip by. We will not allow ourselves to be embarrassed. The president has promised us on numerous occasions that the game will come on board and definitely will host the African Games. Who am I to doubt the president?
But outside of the more documented infrastructural challenges, there are other critical issues threatening the organization of the African Games.
A bit about the dispute. The Anoka-Uxa dispute is that during the Moroccan Games 2019, AU signed an agreement with Anoka and Uxa. Yeah. In the contract, it did not have any time limit. So in their view, that contract was to cover our games, 2023 games.
And what are the terms of, what are the conditions, the contentious conditions here?
The contentious conditions are simply that Anoka will handle the management and marketing rights of the games.
Okay.
But these rights were given to Ghana when we signed the protocol agreement with them.
Yeah.
With AU.
Oh.
And the technical aspect will be handled by UCSA.
Yeah.
Okay, the Confederation
of course.
and all that.
Sporting federations.
Yes. ANOCA hasn't got a problem with we handling the marketing right. We don't also have a problem in ceding out the marketing rights to them because after all, they have been in the game for a while and they have the connections and contact. I mean, if you are doing a business, if you want 10% of zero, it's zero. If you want 10% of 1 million, it's something. So if they can bring in money for us to also have some, that is fine. So we don't have a problem that we are trying.
But AU does.
AU does, because AU doesn't want to ship grounds.
Yeah.
But there's pressure on AU to ship grounds. We hosted them in Ghana, for instance, and ANOCA and UCSA were saying that it is no fault of Ghana that
they have the marketing rights.
That they have this, that they have this problem because they didn't sign. They haven't signed any.
Sign that contract.
So because of that, they didn't want to do anything that will impact adversely on the games. You know, when two elephants are fighting, the grass suffers. So they were prepared to also shift grounds a bit. They came out with a proposal. AU stuck to its grounds. And that is where the problem is at the moment. But now they are shifting grounds. They are arranging for us to meet. Hopefully, very soon, next month, there are 2 meetings lined up. They've been able to get somebody who will be refereeing the meeting and all that.
So why is there a fight then?
No, the issue here strictly is that AU has constituted a technical committee.
Yes.
Called the Technical Committee for the African Games.
Yes.
And the two bodies are saying that they were, if you look at the political agreement, they will have to send in reps, but they don't have reps on it.
Yes.
AU said they invited them, they didn't show up. They didn't bring their, so the issue is how to get these technical resolved. Who is to go on this technical committee? Who is to head and all that?
Because the technical committee is working.
Welcome back on the AM show. We get into our big stories, and that first one having to do with the Ghana Journalists Association, what they've been saying in respect of that Oirepa FM situation. But broadly, the interactions between the chieftaincy institution and the state when it comes to, of course, the fourth arm of government, so to speak, the fourth estate. Where do we go from here on the back of these latest developments? Well, joining us for that conversation, we have Professor Bafo Adjumandua, CEO of the Kufuor Foundation. We also have Professor Audrey Gadzekpo, Dean, School of Law and Information and Communication Studies, University of Ghana, and Osei Bonsu Safo Kantanka, monarchical historian. Lady, gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure.
Good morning. Can I just correct? I'm no longer the Dean of the School of Information and Communication Studies.
Thank you so much, Prof. Gadzekpo, for that correction. Greatly appreciated. Can I hear from Mr. Safo Kantanka?
Yes, good morning.
Great. Good to hear you. Now, we all know the premise for the conversation, so I'll start with you. When it comes to chieftaincy, traditional institutions and what they stand for, I'd like you to give us a bit of a history, because as the picture has been painted, of course, we all the way from the Nkrumah era, pre-Nkrumah era and post the Nkrumah era, we have designated clearly what our chieftaincy institutions should represent. They have their authority, but it has an end, and then the state's power is overarching. But are we missing something when it comes to what chieftaincy can and cannot do in this specific respect?
Yeah, yes, until the day of independence, and even before...
Mr. Safo Kantanka, my sincere apologies. I can barely hear you. Could you speak up for me, sir?
Hello?
Yes.
until the day of independence, or even before independence, the chiefs all over Africa wielded power, and that was the form of governance. We lived in tribes and in states. And each state or tribe had his own chief. Without them, there couldn't have been any form of governance. So our system of governance was embedded in the chieftaincy system. So our rulers were all chiefs. What happened was that with the coming in of the Europeans and the partitioning of Africa, they were put together, states. Indigenous states were all put together and given a name and made countries. So the laws, culture, and traditions, which were our laws, were, in a way, changed or were forced to change to follow the European way of life. European laws, European constitution was all that we followed. But we, in this part of Africa, Ghana, were lucky to have our land still vested in the indigenous leaders. They were responsible. The land did not belong to the leaders. The land belonged to the people. But the chiefs held these lands in trust for the people. It has remained till this day. Before then, they had numerous powers even to the point of a person death penalty. But when they came under the European laws, all these powers were taken from them and given to the heads of states or presidents and prime ministers of the land. So we are now governed by a constitution, in which case the chiefs and their subjects and all that they were doing had to go strictly according to the constitution of the country. Some of the laws, some of the powers were still given back to them, or they still control some powers, like the lands. The lands are still in the hands of the people, and the people are led by their leaders, who are the chiefs. What is at stake today is that although the land belongs to you, but all the minerals in the land belongs to the government. Even the lands that they say belong to the people still belong to the government of Ghana, except that the chiefs and the people are holding it in trust for government. At this point in time, the powers of the chiefs have been so reduced to a degree that people take them for granted, or people don't see them as even important anymore. This is where we are treading on a very dangerous path. I think a time has come for us to do things side by side. The chiefs and the people and the government will have to put their heads together and do things in unison. Otherwise, there would always be conflict. We also lack education of the limits of the chief's powers, and governments actually have no limits, but they have giving some portions of governance to the chiefs. But how many people know that this aspect of the law or this aspect of governance is where the chiefs are responsible? Lack of education, so there is almost always conflict. So this is the gist of chieftaincy. Institution has not been completely eroded. Now, if we were to erode the chieftaincy institution, that is the culture, history, culture, and tradition, and the language, these come together to make our culture. This is all that we have to show to the rest of the world.
Right.
If there is no chieftaincy today, I doubt if we will have anything to show to the rest of the world as our culture.
Point made in that respect. I just want a very quick take on this. Are you suggesting then that the chieftaincy institution is being denigrated? I'll take you back to the Nkrumah era, where some felt that post-independence, the wings of the chieftaindom, if you like, had been clipped to the extent that they were becoming non-relevant. Today, we see the crucial role they play. And the likes of Professor Jampo will point to the fact that even in areas where the tentacles of the law cannot reach, it is the chiefs who stand in and resolve disputes. So would you say the chieftaincy institution has been denigrated? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. We have on record that President Nkrumah once made a statement that chiefs, he would make chiefs run away and leave their sandals behind. And we saw in his days where chiefs were thrown to jail, chiefs were chased out of the country to go to exile and all that.
But to be fair, pardon the interjection, to be fair, it was also because of the activities some chiefs were dabbling in, and if I may extend it, some chiefs from certain parts of the country who were seemingly not working in the interest of the state or working against the leader of the country then. Is that not the correct picture?
That is so, but they were not put before the law. They were only chased out. They were only unilaterally thrown to jail. So these are what we are talking about. That was an attack on the chieftaincy institution. If somebody has done wrong and then you are dealing with that person, or a chief has done wrong and you are dealing with a chief as required by a law, nobody would raise a finger about it.
Okay. Point made. Let me come to Professor Akakpo. This borders on the Fourth Estate, and we all know that the Fourth Estate is expected to be that bastion of democracy, that cement that holds our democracy together, so that the arms of government, and indeed when it comes down to chieftaincy and the powers in there, they don't run amok. But in this instance, what is your initial reading of the Oyerepa situation? Is it an assault on the Fourth Estate, and are our traditional authorities overstretching their powers?
I think that we have to understand that for a long time, from when we were colonized to when we got independence, and I've heard reference to Nkrumah and all of that, our societies have changed. See, we've moved from traditional societies to modernity. And therefore, there are tensions that quite naturally have existed because of that. The historian told us about how the institution has evolved and their powers, the powers of the chiefs, have shrunk, as it should in a modern democracy, because we've had referendums that said that we wanted to be modern democracy. Now we are also Africans, we have chieftaincy institutions. How then do those chieftaincy institutions and the powers that chiefs have, how do they coexist with modern institutions and modern concepts of what democracy means. And that's where the media comes in. And it's not just the media, but freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of movement, you know. And those three things increasingly, not increasingly, but sometimes clash with perceived powers of chieftaincy. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that one of the pillars of democracy is freedom of speech and freedom of expression. The media is only an aspect of that freedom of speech and freedom of expression. Our democratic right as citizens says that we can express ourselves so long as we don't libel people, so long as we don't slander people. We can criticize even authority. The chieftaincy institution is an authority, but so are our governments. So we can criticize our politicians, we can hold them accountable without fear of being sanctioned for doing that, without fear of intimidation. However, because I think that, in my opinion, a lot of the chiefs have not lived up to the democratic ideal. Their conception of democracy has been limited in the sense that they're enjoying the dividends of democracy, of course, but then when it comes to certain aspects of democracy that is tough, like criticizing a chief who you think is gone out of bounds, or the institution, then or doing something within a jurisdiction that they don't like, then they overstep their powers. So closing down a radio station or even telling a radio station, you cannot say this about me when what they're saying is not illegal, becomes a problem in the democratic society. You know, banishing people. We are in a constitutional democracy. We've had chiefs banish people from their jurisdiction. Meanwhile, our constitution says there should be freedom of movement. Right. And we've sat by and listened to chiefs issue bans on citizens because their behaviors are seen as unacceptable. We've seen recently the Ada Traditional Council pronounced that a radio station in the community could not cover a festival. So they really have overstepped their bounds and their powers in that respect. And I heard the first speaker talk about education. I think the chieftaincy institution and the chiefs need education as well. They have to be comfortable with the limitations of their powers. We cannot go back to the past. And by the way, even in the European society that introduced us to the democratic ideals, they too had monarchy. And increasingly, the powers of those monarchs were shrunk so that it becomes compatible with what the citizens now say they want as a system of governance, which is a constitutional democracy. They have to fit into the constitutional democracy.
Right. Interesting points you make, and you know, rather interesting that you say the chiefs have, over time, overstepped their bounds. Two quick issues I want you to look at together. Odike himself, of the UPP, did he overstep his bounds? I don't know whether you've listened to what he said. I don't know what you think about what he said, if you did. Did he overstep his bounds? And then there are those like Professor Jampo who say, look, there are some who have suggested that the chieftaincy institution, on the back of their dabbling in politics, there's multiple sale of land, they're dabbling in galamsey, so to speak, makes the institution anachronistic. And so we should let it go in the 21st century.
Okay.
So Odike
now,
and then the chieftaincy institution.
I have listened to the tape, but I'm not that competent in trees, so I may have missed a lot of the nuances of what was being said in that tape, what was being said in the tape. But I would like to say that it doesn't really matter, in a certain sense, what was said. It matters that if what was said offends whoever, whether it's a chief, as the chieftaincy institution, an individual, a politician, in fact, indeed, even the president, you know, there are processes where you can complain. And the processes do not include issuing fatwas on people. It's very important for us to understand that because we're in a constitutional democracy and the chiefs do not have the power, no matter what is said, to decide that they're closing down a radio station or to decide that they are banishing people. There are processes to seek redress within our constitutional framework, and it's important that that be done. Now, the chiefs engaging in galamsey or doing all manner of things, I mean, they're Ghanaian citizens, and we do know that that's part of the problem. People will say, how is it possible that you have such powers over a particular area and you can't stop galamsey? I'm not going to go into that. However, that's why it's important that citizens have the ability without intimidation to hold chiefs accountable, to hold power accountable, so that they can criticize the chief. You know, they can draw attention if indeed a chief is doing something that is harmful to the community, to the society. So by issuing fatwas, by threatening people who speak out, even if they may have exaggerated, it's very dangerous because all of a sudden citizens are going to be afraid of pointing out when their chiefs go wrong. And where will we be as a society if people just keep quiet and don't hold those who have power accountable?
Right. Interesting point you make. Let me bring in Professor Bafo Ajumandia. So, as I seek your initial reflections on this matter, the curious bit is the chiefs on the one hand are saying we don't have the powers to deal with the menace of galamsey, and so leave us out of it. But on the other end of the spectrum, they seem to be saying we have the power to even shut down radio stations or media entities. So we don't have the power to fight galamsey, but we have the power to tell you to shut down. Some find that to be a bit of a curiosity. How curious is this in the sense of governance, political leadership, traditional leadership?
Thank you, and hello to my very good friend and colleague, Professor Gajipo and Safo Kantanka. This current issue for me is a classic illustration of what I call the duality of the African. I think Ali Mazuri some years ago wrote a very interesting piece on this. Africans, we live in a dual, at times triple worlds, especially if you bring in Christianity. Here we are as Africans with our own culture, tradition, and all. And when the idea of a modern state was introduced through the Europeans, we were unable to critically examine our existence and find a way to merge or to accommodate that which makes us Africans or Ghanaians. It is true that we are in a modern world. It is true that we have a democratic system. It is equally true that we still live as primordial beings. Ghanaians are more closely attached to their traditional traditions and their customs and their history, more than they are attached to the modern state. And a perfect example is to look at how public events are organized in this country. When politicians are having rallies, they go to buy or hire or rent crowds. When chiefs all over this country are having their festivals, they attract crowds, they don't buy them. And that tells you something. Again, if your chief summons you anywhere in this country, north, east, west, south, central, your response perhaps will be different from how you respond to an MCE or minister even someone new. I'm saying this to say that even though we have been highly educated, at times we are even overeducated, we still have those primordial ties to our being. And that is the crux of the matter. Look, in our history, all attempts from the colonial period to present have been made to dismantle the institution. But it seems to me that the chieftaincy institution has been the most resilient in our country even today. Today we are bemoaning the weakness of the judiciary, the executive, the parliament, and all. And the chiefs whose powers have been reduced drastically through the decades, they still survive and they are strong. These are basic facts we should recognize. And this brings me to the point here that when we are founding a new organization, we have what we call the foundational issues. It seems to me that when the state of Ghana was being founded, little recognition, if any at all, was given to an institution that has sustained Ghanaians for centuries. Somebody may use the term, it's now a relic of history. And I remember very well as a student, I used to say the same. But being here for so long, I now realize the power of this institution. So the point I'm making is simple. We live in two worlds, Africans, Ghanaians in particular, and in this particular case. But what you have to recognize that democracy gives us certain liberties that are universal, and that must be respected by all. And as Professor Gadjepo rightly said, the media is the fourth estate in our constitution, and nothing should be done to cripple that estate because it's the most powerful means for people to express themselves. At the same time, it's also important to note that if you are properly brought up in our society, you have to know how you speak. In our democracy, people stand anywhere and insult a president. Akufo-Addo, Kufuor, Rawlings, Atamils, Mahama. We insult them. And because we have a freedom of expression. But our culture and tradition also teach us that there's a better way of talking to our elders. Whether people who are highly educated today think that that is no longer necessary, then that's a different story. Because our existence as Ghanaians is rooted. If you are from the north, from the east, from the west, from the central part, you are rooted in something, what I call the primordial existence. So, despite all the intellectual sophistry that we can all engage in about democracy, modernity, and all that, the bottom line is that if you are summoned today by your chief, your response will be dramatically different from when you are summoned by your MCE or DCE or your minister. So the point I'm making is simple. We need to find a way to accommodate these institutions. Look, we know of the weaknesses of these institutions, and also some people made the mistake to assume that our chiefs are illiterate. But I'm telling you today, there are many of these chiefs who are more educated than myself and many people who think we are PhDs and we are professors. They are highly educated people. And for them, they've successfully merged their Western education that all of us have gotten with their traditions and culture. They are richer than people like us. So I think this case, as I said from the beginning, illustrates very clearly the duality of our existence, and the challenge is how we find accommodation for the two worlds that we live in. This is my initial comment.
Interesting, very interesting, thoughts you have shared there. The primordial aspect, of course, the democratic aspect, and you threw in religion as well. We might want to stay away from that for now. But Mr. Tafukantanka, with all these assertions that I made, there are two things that I want to run by you. And it still has to do with our governance structures, because it is clear per the Constitution what role the chiefs should play and what role governance institutions should play and what role the media should play. But here we are. I watched the clip, for example, before the show, citing Otumfuo Seitu II in one of his utterances in the past, stating how if he makes a declaration, a proclamation, no court within our jurisdiction can overturn it. Is that right? I mean, knowing what we do from the 1992 Constitution. And secondly, as some scholars have said as well, by complying, I mean, Oyerepa FM, by pandering to what Nananum had said, in a way, they lost that merit, that credibility. Would you say that what they did was right, shutting down, or could they have resisted in the name of the law, as some people suggest? So starting with Otumfuo and his proclamation and this one.
As much as the chiefs did not take the laws into their hands to go and shut down Oyerepa FM. They summoned Oyerepa FM to come and explain why they should allow somebody to use their medium to as it were, insult the chiefs.
But they did tell them. They did not forcefully go there to shut it down, but they told them not to operate until there is some conclusion to the matter. They told them that.
No, what my understanding is they told them that to be able to convince them, the chiefs, that they have regretted for what they did. Because they came there, accepted that they have made a mistake, and were pleading for forgiveness. So they told them that the manner in which you came was not the normal process. So they directed them to go by the normal process. And over and above that, advised them to close down their, to shut down their station, to convince them that indeed, if you have been able to shut down your station for a few days, and it is well expressed in the statement the chiefs made, for a few days, until we have finished deliberating upon the issue. They did not say they have closed it down. The power of closing it down, the chiefs are very much aware that they don't have the power to close down any media station. But they advised them. Maybe the language used in advising them was misconstrued to mean a force. The media station could have taken the option of not going to shut it down. So if they had that option and they had chosen the other option, why would people say the Menchia has shut down a station?
But technically, Mr. Safo Kantanka, if you look at the reaction, if you look at the assault on Odike's office, party office, the firing of gunshots, the fact that he had to hide, he had to leave the Ashanti region for fear of his life and what could happen to his supporters and his family. He spoke to us and said he was in a hideout. So yeah, on the back of that, if I may, on the back of that, would you not say that this was merely to avoid any clashes or victimization?
Why would people say that Odike's office was attacked by command from Menchia? Why would people say that?
No, we've not categorically said that, but we are saying that on the back of this.
I strongly believe that Odike staged a drama. So he's the first suspect.
Please clarify. Are you saying he staged the attack?
Sure. I'm confident until it has been proven that he did not stage a drama. It is a drama.
Mr. Kantanka, Safo Kantanka, I want to understand this clearly. You see the footage there of his party office vandalized, bullets going through cars. In fact, one of his men was hit by a stray bullet with these, young thugs attacking the premises, chanting, looking for him. And you say you think it was staged.
Yes, I think so. I think it was staged. And Odike could easily do that.
But based on what would you make this
it
assertion?
Should be the first suspect. When somebody reports a case, you do not take it just because he has reported. He himself is a suspect. You're welcome, madam.
Hello, Mr. Safo Kantanka. I'm listening. I'm listening to you, sir. Hello? I think we unfortunately lost Mr. Safo Kantanka there. But very interesting point he was making, suggesting that Odike of the UPP, he believes, he is certain that Odike staged the attack to create some sort of scenario. When we get Mr. Safo Kantanka back, we'll take a look at that particular development and find out why he thinks in that line. But let me bring in Professor Gajekpo. Your reflections on these, because again, I'll go back to what the Asantehene has said. And I was about to pose to Mr. Safo Kantanka. We have a democracy, and this is not a monarchy, so to speak, a la, the UK or something of the sort. They have the Queen, but we know what roles she plays. In our democracy, can we have a king, whether it is the Ashanti king or, like some refer to, the Agbogbomefia of Asogli state as a king? Where do their powers end per what you see? And is it right, the decision that was taken by Asanteman?
Well, I think that what I've heard Mr. Kantaka say really disturbs me. Because I think that we ought to be concerned, if we live in a democracy, that a citizen has said he's been attacked and it should be investigated. However, what I would have liked to have asked him is that, what did he think, especially in light of Professor Balfour's submission on the primordial state and the fact that people defer more to their chief than even their MP. If the chief told that radio station that they didn't think they should go on air, it amounts to telling them to shut down, even if it's temporary, because those the radio station people knew that the chiefs were offended. Whether the chief really had the right to be offended or not is another matter. But they were offended. And they, being subject and of that area and understanding how powerful Menshia is, felt that they had no choice but to apologize. It's kind of like sometimes children are told to apologize whether you did wrong or not. If we went to the court of law would say the child had a right to point that out if the elder was misbehaving. Yet in our culture, children are not supposed to speak up, to criticize elders, right? So once Menshia had intimated that they shouldn't be on air, I think that the station felt obliged to comply. They felt intimidated, to comply with it because they knew the ramifications. They probably saw what happened to Odike. So they were not about to risk their station being vandalized. And it is a problem. We've seen many instances where chiefs have incited violence against people. And we have to own up to these things happening within our society. Otherwise, people's human rights will be trampled upon all of the time. If we want chieftaincy to be accommodated within the modern dispensation, then chieftaincy should know where the boundaries of their powers are and to do the responsible thing by going through the processes. I cannot say it enough. There are processes if you feel aggrieved. And chiefs are subject to those processes as well. Other institutions may be weak, But I want to respond to Professor Bakwa to say that the chieftaincy institution itself, even though it's been resilient, is also weak because some people have lost trust in their chiefs. Now, I don't know how many chiefs we have in this country. Many chiefs of different levels. So which chief has a right to banish people? Which chief has a right to do the kind of take the kind of action that Manshia did? If other smaller, in quotes, chiefs decide to do that, you can imagine how ungovernable Ghana would be. So there has to be a consensus, an understanding of the chieftaincy institution itself, that there are limits to their power and that they should consider going through certain processes if they feel offended. I cannot say it enough. We cannot get to a point where when people criticize chiefs, they are intimidated into shutting down. It's a dangerous precedent because it can be replicated throughout the country. We have chiefs throughout the country. It can be replicated. And pretty soon, the institution of chieftaincy will be unaccountable.
Interesting thoughts there. Let me come to Professor Agyemang-Duah. You've heard the reflections of Professor Akakpo on some of the statements that you, together with Mr. Safo Kantanka, have shared. But how do you react to what she says about the primordial interest, the chieftaincy institution, and governance, the broader governance aspect? And then again, do you accept when Mr. Safo Kantanka says that Odike staged all of this? I mean, in our jurisdiction, legally, it is innocent until proven guilty. How do you react?
Mr. Kantanka's position at all. I cannot imagine Odike organizing guns and others to come and attack his office. I don't accept it. I think we need to have better investigation in the matter. And I do agree with Audrey that we got to be careful and have to determine the limits of powers of chiefs and all. But you see, determine the limits of power must be defined in the Constitution. The Constitution has a whole chapter on chieftaincy. And besides that, we have acts, Chieftaincy Act 1972, Chieftaincy Act, so on, so on, so. All these acts do not appear to align that institution with the democratic practice. You see, that's what the problem is. So if you are talking governance, chiefs in their own jurisdiction exercise traditional governance. And if you watch the whole tape of 1 hour, 35 minutes or so of the proceedings that occurred at the Kumasi Traditional Council, at least, if nothing at all, you'll be impressed by the processes that they went through in discussing the issue, where every chief had a right to express themselves before the final decision was made. So chiefs in their own jurisdiction do have these governance things. But I think what has been a challenge for us is to really to think carefully to see how we align. There are certain aspects of our cultural traditions that cannot stand today for obvious reasons. They are outmoded, no doubt. In the same way, there are some aspects that we can uphold because the values they give are good for our own existence. So we have to differentiate between those aspects that are outmoded and those that we can preserve. So when it comes to the current issue, look, I've taken time to review all the tapes. And as I think Kantanka said, Mr. Kantanka said, it was an advice. But I also agree with Audrey that in view of the situation in Manshia, if you are advised to close your shop for a day or two before the final solution is reached, you better take the advice seriously out of intimidation or perhaps out of reverence for that traditional authority. So it can be either way. But I think what is important here is to further probe these issues and see how we can accommodate the chieftaincy. But the way we have structured our governance, no chief can be superior to the Constitution. all of us are under the Constitution of 1992. And I think anybody who goes beyond that is simply breaching our Constitution. At the same time also, when the Constitution says that the chiefs are the custodians of culture, tradition, and history, wherever, you cannot be a custodian without protecting what has been entrusted to you to keep. So you see that contradiction. So maybe chiefs act in certain ways because as custodians that the Constitution has bestowed upon them, they believe that they have to act to protect certain things, which may mean simply traditions, basically. And tradition requires that if you are going to a chief, for instance, either you go with a whiskey or a schnapp, or you go with certain things, or you don't speak directly to a chief, you have to go through a linguist, and all these are traditions that the chiefs seem to be keeping.
Right.
On one hand, it's not bad because, as I keep saying, our existence is rooted in these cultures and traditions and history. On the other hand, in our modern world, as Professor Gajipo rightly pointed out, there are certain things that cannot be done that we used to do. So in that respect, how the chiefs themselves, because as I said earlier, many of them are highly educated, and how those who are also educated, like those who are championing democracy, how we can bring our heads together to see how best we can find a way to get these two institutions aligned. Because you know what? Unfortunately, most Ghanaians live under two systems of governance, because those who are in the traditional areas, rural areas, have chiefs. Go and talk to them, how they revere their chiefs. At the same time, those of us who are highly educated, we don't seem to have much value for that institution. But those who value the institution outnumber those of us who think because of education, maybe we don't. So I think the proper thing to do is to find a way to accommodate the two sides, because when I use the term resilience, I didn't mean that chiefs, the institution is not weak. No, they've suffered so many things in their existence, like you cited the Nkrumah thing of chase you without your sandals and all. And if you talk about corruption, they are, because they are Ghanaians. All Ghanaians, polls tell us that corruption is endemic. So if our political system is highly corrupt, we cannot expect that traditional institution not to be corrupt.
Right.
So we are all weak in that respect. So we need to find a way.
Shortly, we'll be winding down on the conversation in terms of the way forward. But I just want to put that pointed question to you, Prof. Is it high time we took a second look at our 1992 Constitution, especially in reference to the role of traditional authority in light of these happenings? Very quickly on that, if you may.
I will not hesitate at all. In fact, I'm one of those who are calling for constitutional review. And certainly the chieftaincy institution is one institution we have to examine critically and provide certain roles. In my humble view, like you are talking about going forward, the best we can do, I think, is to allow the chiefs certain roles in their own traditional areas. You see, when you compare monarchy in Ghana to Britain and other places, it's not the right comparison. Because in Ghana, we don't have it. We don't have monarchy. We have chiefs or kings in their own confined areas. Whereas Sweden, Netherlands, and all, they were kings or queens over the whole country. But here we don't. So if you're talking about powers of chieftaincy, chiefs and all, these are limited to their own traditional areas. So if you're looking for effective governance, for instance, recently, when the government found it very difficult to deal with the Galamsey, after bypassing the chiefs, now the minister came out to say, now we have to go to the chiefs to see how they help us to solve it. So in fact, if chiefs were to have a role, because, most of their roles have been eroded through the decades by the state. So I agree. I will say that, sure, the chieftaincy institution have to be critically evaluated and see how best we can align it.
If we have Mr. Safo Kantanka back on the line with us, I would just have you wrap up briefly on the point you were making and then give us what you think is the way forward in this specific case, but generally as well, in terms of interactions between the state, traditional authority, and the media. Mr. Safo Kantanka. All right. We've not been able to reconnect with him. So I'll throw that to the two of you. I'll start with Professor Akakpo on that. How do we tie the loose ends? What's the way forward?
Well, is to please plead with the chief that they must recognize, even if the Constitution doesn't finally define it, they must recognize that whatever pronouncements they make must fit into the spirit as well as the letter of the Constitution. It's really important that they understand that, and so that they understand the limits of their power. And there are reasons why they must understand the limits of their power within modern governance structure. Therefore, chiefs should say, yes, people revere me, I am powerful. In some jurisdictions, what the chief says, as Professor Akakpo rightly says, is even more powerful than what the politician says. But it doesn't mean that you need to abuse the human rights of the people within which, over whom you preside. And that's why the Constitution is important. Because I think the Constitution recognizes that even though there are chiefs, those chiefs can also abuse the human rights of their subjects. We can't assume that the chiefs are just so enlightened and so benevolent that sometimes they don't overstep their bounds, sometimes they don't abuse the constitutional rights of their subjects. They do, and there are many instances where they have that. And therefore, in these instances, the Constitution must remain the supreme guide of behavior. And the Constitution says there must be freedom of speech and expression. I understand that you must show deference to the chiefs and you must be polite. But when a subject does not do that, there are proper processes within modern society that you can go to. Did the chief even bother to contact the National Media Commission, for example? It's a state institution that could have been brought in to complain about the behavior of the radio station. And if the radio station continues to perpetrate that behavior, there are also other recourse that can be taken. But unilaterally telling radio stations, either not, in the case of Ada, you cannot come and cover the festival, or I advise you to shut down for a few days until I have determined the case against you. It's very, very problematic. Like I said, there are more than 500 radio stations in this country and TV stations. What if chiefs within certain jurisdictions that have been criticized and feel unfairly criticized decide to also issue similar edicts? What would happen?
Interesting perspectives shared there. Just hold for me as we wrap. Prof. Ajamandia, your final thoughts?
I do agree with Professor Akakpo. I think until a review is done, it's important for all of us, including the chiefs, to respect the Constitution, especially on issues relating to the fundamental rights of citizens, because that's the bottom line of democracy, how we protect the rights of individuals. So if anybody seeks to undermine or deny any individual that liberty, that is a big no. So, and again, I should say, we know that certain practices of chiefs are not consistent with the new liberties and freedoms that we have. So in that respect, maybe democracy education may be something we have to consider for our institution of chieftaincy. They need to do that, even though, as I said, many of them are highly educated. Even amongst us who are not chiefs and highly educated, there are many of us who do not even understand these liberties and freedoms we're talking about. So it goes wrong. All of us in this country, we need to have a heavy doses of democracy education so that the fundamental rights of citizens must be. So certainly I will not condone any unilateral acts of closing down radio stations or banishing people, even though the context of these two incidents in Kumasi, I can have a certain sense of understanding, but not approval. So in that respect, I think it's very important that we bring our chieftaincy institution in conformity with the modern governance that we all cherish to have.
Gentlemen, lady, we're immensely grateful for your time. Osebunsu Safo-Kantanka is a monarchical historian. He joined the conversation earlier. He made some interesting points that for him, he feels Odike staged, masterminded that attack on his own party's office. That is an interesting twist. We also had Professor Agyemangua, CEO of the Kufuor Foundation, who feels that definitely the 1992 Constitution must be tweaked in the sense of addressing that shift between traditional authority and political authority. We also had, joining the conversation, Professor Audrey Gajekpo, a communications person and an academic, who has also shared her thoughts on how wrong it is for traditional authority to overstep its bounds. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. All right. And so moving on from here, we have a lot more coming your way. We are also going to be talking about the KNUST situation and matters arising. And we're going to have a discussion shortly on climate change and why Africa is the focus in COP27 shortly to be held in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. Do stay with us. We'll be right back.
Good morning to you. Thank you so much for staying on the AM show. It's 40 minutes after 8. And Benjamin just finished off that conversation about the Oyerepa FM situation. I know you may have a lot to say about it. Get onto our Facebook page, drop your comments, or you can wait when we get interactive with you. You share your thoughts with us and the rest of the world. But now we're going to have a conversation about the decision of the Council of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology to abolish the junior common room system of hall management by students on campus. Now, this is after the clash between students of Katanga, that's the University Hall, and Kunti Unity Hall. There are varied reactions to this. Now, we are asking whether these measures put in place, one, are sustainable, and most importantly, whether they can resolve the violence we saw on that campus. We've been joined by security analyst Adam Bona for a conversation on this. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So before I take your initial reactions, let me just paint a picture for many people on how this junior common room system works. So in most universities, you have halls. And in the halls, you have what you call a hall master. And then you have a senior common room made up of lecturers and other people in the hall who are not students. Then there's the junior common room system where all students are a part of, and they elect executives to represent them on the hall's council. So this is what happens usually. I'm told that in most universities, the traditional authorities of halls, and if you know what happened at Katanga, that is the University Hall, the students were on a procession, what they call morale building, and they usually have a chief priest or a certain icon who represents the hall when it comes to these traditional activities. So we are told that the JCR collects dues annually for various reasons or for various activities run by the hall, and they usually will sponsor the activities of the hall, like the morale or the procession we saw. So here's what the council decided to do. Let's scrap the JCR system. There are many people who've asked the question, who then represents the students when it comes to the Halls Council and other councils or other groupings that students will need representation on apart from the SRC. But the council believes that this is the best way to handle this situation, of course, which is not new. Your initial reaction, Adam Bonner, when you look at this decision by the council, do you think that it solves the problem of violence? Hello, Mr. Bonner. Hello, Mr. Bonner. All right, too bad. I'm told that we have a technical challenge with that. But let me bring in the University Relations Officer of KNUST, Dr. Norris Bekoe. I've just tried to paint a general picture of what happens in universities when it comes to the junior common room. But let me find out from you, Dr. Norris Bekoe, and thank you for joining us this morning. What then happens to student representation on the halls if the JCR system is being scrapped?
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm speaking to Benny.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So, Benny, let me give you a little background. And then you understand why the position of the University Council. See, after the 2018 violent demonstration that led to a destruction of several properties and causing injury and harm to human life in the university, a committee was constituted to investigate the matter. They came out with some recommendations. One of those is that the university should stop affiliating students to the various halls of residence, the traditional halls of residence. So since 2019, we have not been affiliating students to any of the halls. The halls are, they exist and they are there on first come, first served basis. So if you are a student and you gain admission to Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, you pay your academic user fee and then you proceed to make a reservation in any of the halls. When you are successful, you pay your dues or whatever the hall, whatever fee you are supposed to pay, and then you occupy the hall for 1 year, and then you move to one of the hostels around the university. So we have been operating the in, out policy, where only first years, in fact, some section or a fraction of first years are allowed to stay in the traditional halls of residence. All other students, including continuing students, are supposed to look for accommodation around the university campus. I hope you get that clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, after this recent class, another committee was constituted by the university management to investigate the causes of this and make recommendations. And then they did their work and then brought the findings and recommendations. This has gone to the University Council, and Council has given blessing to it. Now, the issue here, which everyone is talking about, is that we are trying to take the hands of students off the management of the halls. I want to say that is not correct. What the University Council is saying is that the current arrangement where we have first years who are living in the halls, and those first years have leaders. We have floor leaders, line leaders. That arrangement is what should now be the normal arrangement now.
Okay.
Which means that only those who are occupying the hall will be able to help to manage the hall in collaboration with the hall masters and hall tutors. So when they come to first year, they are given orientation, and then within a short time, just like the way the colleges do it, the colleges and departments do it, they are given orientation, and then they elect their own leaders from those who are living in the hall. And those leaders will be managing the hall with the hall masters and hall tutors.
Right, Doc. So just a quick one. I'm looking at the statement that was released by the university after that emergency meeting. And you're now saying that student leaders will have to be appointed instead of the usual voting system. Who makes that appointment? And what is the criteria?
Well, what is going to happen is this. When they come first year, the freshers who come to the various halls of residence, they appoint themselves. The floor leaders, line leaders, the people decide to volunteer. And then from there, they can proceed to maybe after some time, they will proceed and then perhaps from among themselves elect those who govern or lead them. What we are saying simply is that only those who are residents in the traditional halls of residence will become leaders to help manage.
Doc, is it the situation that there has not been yet a roadmap or a certain criteria developed for how this appointment will take place? Because what I'm reading here is not exactly what the explanation I'm getting from you. Maybe let me read for clarity purpose. With effect from the 2023-2024 academic year, the Junior Common Room system of hall management by students is abolished. This means there will be no student elections for hall executives. The existing governance structure comprising hall councils, hall masters, and senior tutors would continue to operate in the management of the affairs of the halls. In addition, hall fellows will be appointed and assigned. And I'm asking these hall fellows, who will make the appointment and who will assign them?
The managers, those who are managing the hall.
All right.
The hall masters, the directorates of the junior students, and the hall tutors.
Okay, just a quick one before I bring in my other guests. And I must mention that we've been able to establish a better connection with Dr. Adam Bona, who is a security analyst, and my colleague Nanaya Aljima, who's been on this beat, will be giving us student reactions to this latest information from the council. But before I go to them, Doc, I've seen in that same release that students are not supposed to be harboring or accommodating persons, including those who've been rusticated, those who've been suspended, and some alumni. What is the role of the alumni in all of this violence or in the promotion of it?
Oh, right from 2018 up until the recent clash. In all the investigations that have been conducted, it emerged that the alumni, some alumni, not all of them, some alumni, some dismissed students who are still hanging around the university, some rusticated students have a huge role to play in some of these disturbances that occur. That is it, and it came up even in the recent finding of the committee that investigated the recent clash.
All right.
And Benny, I want to say something. If currently the police is investigating that matter, making some arrests, and I wanted to give them the opportunity to do their work peacefully. We don't want to be coming out with too much detail.
Sure.
But when they are done and they come up with details, all of us will find out the role that some of these people play.
Definitely. I'll come back to you shortly. Let me go to Dr. Bona now. Doc, so this is the decision by the management after an incident of violence. Do you see it solving that problem? This decision to abolish the junior common room system?
The other guest on the other side. Yes, partially it would solve the chaotic nature of some of this, halls. The behavior of students is likely to check it. And you must know that what the university relations officer is saying with regards to non-students who who are, staying on these campuses are one major challenge that cuts across all the universities, including University of Ghana and even UCC. And they are the people who breed, level hundreds and those who are coming in fresh, because they've been there. Some of them, I will call them pure criminals. They have no reason to be on these campuses, for that matter, to be in these halls. Some of them are dismissed students for maybe they don't want to go home for parents to know they are dismissed. So they continue to stay on these campuses. If the person was rusticated or sacked, maybe at level 200, the person will stay on this campus till his colleagues finish. Then probably, and they continue to live there. And these are the people who are causing, a great deal of havoc on these campuses. Some of them are national service persons who finish the university because they don't want to step out and rent places for themselves. Will usually go into town to go and do their national service and come back and be squatting in these halls. And this was, it was one of the things that came out. If you ask me, when I chaired the University of Ghana clash last year, it came out. And you will notice that there are some of these people who, for me, should be in jail. But for some reasons, the university managements across board have not in the past dealt with them as criminals. Because if you take what happened recently on University of Ghana campus, what would a student be doing with a firearm? What would students be doing with gasoline? What would students be doing with acid? And so the car that was touched on University of Ghana campus, they use gasoline. If you are pelting each other with stones and probably other objects, but they've elevated it to using, deadly, call it liquids and deadly things in order to perpetrate this dastardly act. So as far as I'm concerned, anything the university management, especially...
Hello, Doc?
The university become a serene environment for academic purposes. Why do we go to university? You go to the university to acquire knowledge. You don't go to the university to end up becoming some, criminal, some person who is being trained to be a terrorist. And so as far as I'm concerned, I am 100% in support of what KNUST management is doing. And I'm saying this because I have been part of some of the things that have, investigating some of the things that have happened on University of Ghana campus. And I can tell you that even on University of Ghana campus, some students came all the way from Tech to come and cause the havoc we saw on University of Ghana campus. If you look at what happened in Tech, I am reliably informed that students from some of these public universities traveled all the way to Tech and they crisscross, caused commotion and ran back. And so I think that it is high time, when we were in, university, you demonstrate, you do things as part of student leader, you go out there, you are whipped by the police, but you see, we were not this distracted. So to have these students, turning into the use of gasolines, petrol, acid, and I'm saying that if these universities do not, deal with this now, a day would come when University of Ghana, KNUST, UCC, and the rest, these students will drive petrol tankers, spread petrol on these campuses, and touch everything, including the human beings. Per the report that came out, per our findings, I'm not supposed to put out, the report is still with the university, but it was that, chilling what some of these students wanted to do. And so as far as I'm concerned, I think that in order not to put anyone in a panic mood, I think that I would want my children, my son is about entering the university. Would I want my son to enter University of Ghana and be resident of maybe a Commonwealth Hall when he's likely to be trained to be something else that I'm not expecting? I'm sure they have traditions that are good, that are supposed to have, trained them well. But it looks like this generation are turning out to be something else. And the leaders of this university owe it as a duty to deal with it. He mentioned the issue of rearranging it. You come to, for instance, Commonwealth Hall. So you have the Vice Chancellor and the University Council. They have no hand in who becomes a hallmaster or tutor and the like. And so if you are a hallmaster, you are not, your allegiance is not to the university. Your allegiance is to the hall. How can you tell me that you have President Nanado being president and his ministers, their allegiance is to probably their tribe, but not to the Republic of Ghana? Once that happens, and there is an issue and you call them, they tell you they saw nothing, they heard nothing, they smelt nothing, they have no report. And so where do you go to? So I think the management of these halls, the council of the university, management of the university should be deeply involved, or else I'm telling you on authority that we would one day wake up and Tech would have been bent down in ashes, Legon would have been bent down in ashes, and UCC would follow suit. So I think that they should put their feet down and make sure these things are resolved once and for all.
You said you didn't want to put us in panic mood, but that sounds quite alarming.
But no, I'm being sincere with it. And so let's say the way it is, instead of usually dancing around it, when it happened on Legon, you interviewed me, your station interviewed me, and I told you that if this thing is not dealt with, it would go to Tech. It didn't take 1 week.
Right,
we saw it in Tech.
Right, Doc. So you said, you admit, you say you support the university's decision, the University Council's decision, but you say this will partially solve the problem of violence. What then, or what other measures or what other decisions will bring this problem totally to its knees?
Oh, as for students and young people and their behavior, you cannot take away sometimes people making, human mistakes. But I have said that the university security, the public, these universities, including Tech, they must beef up their security. They must begin to learn from what the current Ghana Police Service is doing, using heavily informants. Use some of these students who sometimes have no food to eat, who can't pay their, facility user fees. Use them. Let them be a source of giving you intelligence. So they gather intelligence about a plan to go and destroy stuff, to demonstrate, to do other stuff that are uncalled for. Anyone who brings you information that would check, that will come to be credible, you give the person 2,000 or 1,000. They should have that regime there. Once you begin to do that, this radicalism and heavy-handedness on the part of the students will reduce. Apart from that, KNUST has already taken the step to put in CCTV, so they have been able to arrest students. CCTVs, but the CCTVs, I'm not sure whether KNUST is manned 24/7. I want to see a situation where these CCTVs are all over the halls. The other thing has to also do with the university management themselves will have to come and probably come down to the level where they learn about security, they learn about how, security must work. Because most of these universities have, a security committee that is usually chaired or that is led by somebody who is, who is a non-security person, very academic, and usually they have no knowledge how to preempt something that is supposed to happen. And so I think that they have to begin to look at opening their tentacles, bringing in other people to help them manage their security, because then if they don't do that, things will get out of hand. Also paying their security very well. You go to most of these universities, security guards are not paid well. And if the URO of KNUST is listening to me, I will tell him that you cannot employ people who sometimes are qualified, probably with the requisite qualification to enter the Ghana Police Service as maybe a constable, and you pay the person probably less than his counterparts in the Ghana Police Service. So I would say garbage in, garbage out. They should bring that level to a certain standard where the university security are well paid and well resourced. If you look at today, the Ghana Police and the other security services. It has become something that most young people would want to join because I can tell you, their police officers are paid more than teachers. And so a teacher would want to resign from being a teacher to be a police officer or a military officer. So they should do that because once they do it, you would have people who probably are willing to have the passion to serve the university in terms of security.
All right, Doc. Let me go to my colleague who's joining us from Kumasi, Nanayao Jima. Hello, Nanayao. He's an old student of KNUST himself. Nanayao, how are the students reacting to the council's decision to scrap the JCR system?
So since Saturday, when the council's resolutions were made public, there have been a lot of reactions from these students on campus. And there are a number of students who do not side with the council, for instance. And when it comes to scrapping the JCRC system, the students are asking a lot of questions about the decision that was made by the council. Now, they believe that the JCRC is not directly connected with whatever is happening on the campus, and they see it as one of the attempts for the university council or the management to take control of all the things that are happening on the campus. For instance, there are questions why Republic Hall, Queen's Hall, and also Independence Hall will all be under a system where their leadership do not, have no hand in whatever happened between Kunti and Katanga. So if there should be sanctions, according to some of the students, it should be for the leadership of Kunti or Unity Hall and University Hall, and the other halls should be exempt. So they believe that one of the halls cannot cause such a mayhem on campus, and the punishment be meted to all the other leadership of these halls. Furthermore, they believe that if now we are handing everything over to the hall masters or the university management or the people that are appointed to the university management, we already have this system. Now, if there is something happening on campus, or if Kunti or university have invited students from other campuses to help them or to join them as they celebrate their hall, these hall masters who are in charge of the hall day-to-day administration of the halls, those who hold the finance and everything and other things in these halls, they should have intelligence of the coming of these students. So if these other students from other halls should cause any mayhem on campus, these people, if they are not aware of these things, they should also be punished. So they believe that meting out punishment just to the JCRC executives, it's very unfair, and they believe that it should be restored. But the university management should find other innovative ways of channeling the energies of students from both the university and Unity Hall towards good causes, so that we wouldn't see another clash as we've witnessed in the past few weeks. So there are a lot of reaction from the students, even though they agree with some of the resolutions. They believe that the suspension of the JCRC system of governance in these halls, it's rather unfortunate, and the University Council will have to look at it again.
Right, Nanayao Juma reporting for us from Kumasi, telling us how the students have been reacting to the University Council's decision. I've still got the University Relations Officer, Dr. Norris Bakwe, with us on the line. So, Doc, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering what the correlation between the violence we saw, or the violence we've been seeing over the years, and the existence of the JCR is. I'm sure once we're able to draw that correlation, many may be able to understand why the council took the decision it took. Briefly, are you able to tell us how there is a direct link between the existence of the JCR and the violence we've been seeing over time?
Yes, thank you very much. Let me correct this misinformation. Your reporter from Lab FM was putting out some information that students think that management is trying to stifle them, or maybe take their hand, win their hand off administration of the hall. That's not correct. What we are saying is that since 2019, and I want to repeat this again, since 2019, we stopped affiliating students to the various halls of residence. And so if a student wants to say he wants to come and contest for election to be a JCRC executive or so, on what basis? There's no basis. What we are rather proposing, or what council is proposing, is that let those who are occupying the halls continue to manage the halls with their hall teachers and hall masters. Now, it will interest you to note that, and I hesitate to talk about these details because the police is investigating it, but just to satisfy your curiosity, it emerged during the investigation that a lot of those students who were engaged in this, those who were leading the charge, were students who have been dismissed, rusticated, some alumni of the university. Do you understand the point? And what happened? It's also emerged that those people were harbored in the halls of residence by the so-called executives 24 hours to this demonstration or this violent class. Now, again, when these executives were inviting their counterparts from the, University of Cape Coast, Catholic Hayford, to be precise, they did not inform the hall executive, or the hall master, and the directors of the student affairs. Why would a student leader invite other people from other universities or other places, or even non-students, to participate in a lawful activity, if they call it lawful, which is part of their socialization, in a lawful activity in a university and cause distraction to the university property? I can tell you that if you have seen the video footage of what happened recently, you'll be surprised why a student will be so charged with a cutlass, huge machete, iron rod, knife, stones, huge stones, at other colleagues who are students. And the underlying thing is this: most of those people who were seen in the video were not students. Some of them were non-students. Do you understand the point?
I do.
And who brought them? Who brought them? It's the executives of those halls. Unity did it. Katanga did it. And so management has said that, okay, to allow peace of mind to reign on the university campuses, where we don't have to be constantly looking at what is happening, who is going to hurt who. Let us focus. Let's this arrangement, the current arrangement, where those people who are occupants of this hall emerge as leaders of the hall, and then help the hall teachers and the hall masters to manage the affairs of the hall. Right.
Doc, should we expect...
Cannot have, Benny, you cannot have somebody coming from a different country or a different home coming to manage the affairs of your home.
Right.
You can't.
Right. So Doc, should we expect more interventions or measures, or what is the council's attitude going to be towards this? Is it that sorry, let me just is it that you're doing this and you're studying over time to see what the reaction will be, or this is just an initial reaction pending more interventions?
Well, I am unable to tell you if there will be no more intervention. But as I said, it is based on the recommendation of the fact-finding committee that council acted.
Right.
Let us allow this to work and see how it is going to go. As to what management or council will do in future, it is determined, or it will be determined by the situation every time on the ground.
Right. Okay.
But the number one reason for which we exist, as my friend Bona said, is to train minds. And Benny, I can tell you, if you go to all sectors of this economy, KNUST students are performing creditably. And we need to give the university opportunity to exist in peace of mind, in peace, so that we can continue to do the work that we have been doing.
Right.
We cannot always be in the news for one bad class or the other. Situations where students come to university with cutlass, with machetes, as if the place is a war zone, it should be something that all of us should view or take with a pinch of salt. And so I want to encourage, or I want to invite all those people who have contrary views to allow the decision of the council to reign, and so that we all will see the benefit that will come from it.
Have you already started seeing opposition to this decision? I'm asking this because of your last statement. And also, I remember what happened, I think about in 2018, when there were talks about converting the university hall, that's Katanga, to a mixed hall, and there was serious opposition from the alumni, and we saw some interventions, people going to see chiefs and all that. Are you beginning to see an opposition to this decision by the council?
Well, largely we have had commendations from the alumni, the leaders of the alumni. And then we have also had commendations from very well-meaning Ghanaians who see this as the best decision that they have taken. In fact, if you listen to the security expert, my friend Adam, he tells you that if we don't take this measure, if we are not careful, one day we'll wake up in the morning and the whole university is burned down. And I don't think that is what all of you are wishing for.
Right. Okay, let me come to you, Doc. You earlier painted a really bad picture that happened at the University of Ghana, where you saw students with acid, some with weapons. We've just been told by the URO of KNUST that a similar situation happened, machetes, iron rods, and he uses the term charged. And that's what you usually see in such situations where young people appear, and some people will use that word advisedly, but appear to be somewhat in a different light. You know, it's as though they were possessed and something has taken over their minds and their actions, and they're meting out such violence towards fellow students. But the question is, why? When we see what happens in a war situation or in a conflict situation, we usually know why people will be so passionate. People will carry weapons to either defend themselves or attack their enemies. But in this situation, what is causing all of this? I fail to understand why students will do something like this. What is the cause? What is the underlying current that is feeding all of this violence? Hello, Dr. Bona. Do I have Dr. Bona on? Too bad. It appears we lost Dr. Bona there because I was just trying to get an understanding on what will cause students to be this violent, you know.
Bennett, I can give you
that's great, Doc. Yes, if you have some clues, please. Yes.
You see, Bennett, we have various reasons that will account for this. But one of the cardinal cause of this is anger in the minds of certain people, criminals. I call them criminals because if you are a student and you come to university, you are coming to study, acquire knowledge, and go back and impact society positively, isn't it? But when you have students who come to university to come and cause mayhem, cause havoc, some of them are thieves, some of them are engaged in criminal activities, and when sanctions when these students are sanctioned, either by dismissal or rusticated, then they have this internal, this anger that is in them to pay back. And also because over time, because of this issue about let's give it a human face, let's do disciplinary action, human face, let us not destroy the future of students, the university has been very hesitant in terms of publishing or name and shaming of those students. And so when students are disciplined, we don't publish it widely. You understand the point? And those students even don't want their parents to know that they have been disciplined. And so they don't go home. They continue to collect school fees from their parents. They hang around. And then on weekends, they come and then charge with their colleagues to try to pay back or to harm someone. Because for them, the continuous distraction of the name of the university is their principal goal. Again, we have a number of students who are on drugs. We have a number of students who are on drugs. And this is across the universities, all of them.
All right, Doc. Right. Is there a history to this, especially with the University Unity Hall rivalry? What is the root cause, and how is this rivalry transferred to new students who come to the university into those various halls?
This is what I'll say. You see, this rivalry has been there since the inception of the university, and it's what we call as an aspect of socialization. But you see, even the alumni are saying that no, the rivalry that we used to engage in was not this kind of destructive rivalry. You understand the point? It was a sort of healthy competition where they do ABC, they want to outdo each other just to show that they are the one on top. But some of these criminals, you understand the point? Criminals, I call them criminals, have decided to indoctrinate the new ones by giving a different twist to this rivalry. And so you have students who are coming, and then before they say, oh, we have to be able to beat students and destroy this and destroy that. Benny, last 2 weeks, no, it's not even last, I think last week, we saw the police picked up one of the young men who was on social media threatening that he was going to kill 5 students. You understand the point? Why will a student who has come to university have the mentality of planning to kill colleagues? You don't understand. Obviously, that person may have been indoctrinated or given some wrong perception about issues.
Right. Doc.
So this is what is happening.
We'll have to leave it here for now, but we will stay in touch with you, trusting that the university's decisions will yield some good results. But that's Dr. Norris Bakwe. He is the University Relations Officer of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. Earlier, we had Dr. Adam Bona. I just wanted to wrap up with him when we lost him via Zoom there. We also heard from Nana Aljima, who is with Love FM in Kumasi. Let's stay in the Ashanti region because the youth of a town near Durban have blocked the road, protesting heavy traffic on that stretch. And that's happening now. And we will be bringing you details on that. Emmanuel Bright Kweku joins us live from Kumasi.
The police is trying to convince the residents to make way for drivers who use this stretch to use. But it appears it's proving futile because most of them are saying it's been several times, they've been calling several times for the government to heed their cry. But as it appears, their roads have not been fixed for the past 2 years now. So the police is actually convincing the residents over here so they can make way for the cars that use this particular stretch to move through. But after several hours, it's been almost 2 hours since they blocked the roads with some blockades. That is, you see some chairs and tables over there. They blocked the roads that they are demanding that the government comes to fix their roads for them or face their wrath in the subsequent or the next general elections. So that is what is currently happening. So as you can see, that is the police trying to convince some youth of this area. They are trying to convince the police trying to convince these youth so they make way for the cars that use this particular stretch. Since we came this morning, I can confirm that some cars were stranded, even an ambulance that was trying to convey a sick person or a patient to the hospital has not been able to use the road, the ambulance had to turn. The ambulance had to turn. So as you can see, that is a commander trying to calm down one of the residents. So they make way for the roads to be used by these motorists on this particular stretch.
Any rep from local government attending to the concerns of these young people?
They are now coming. I'm coming. They are now coming. At the roads, some people are trying. A road user is trying to come through, but it appears the residents are actually not happy that the roads are actually open for road users to use. So let me find some of them and then engage them. So please let me engage with you. Me pacho adentia. Omo making allegations say we 500 cedis. What's your 500 cedis? So that are some residents, that are some aggrieved residents demanding that the government comes to fix their road. They've paid almost 500 cedis to some. They paid some 500 cedis for them to pay. Okay, they paid some 500 cedis. They've paid some 500 cedis for these highway authorities or some authorities to demand their roads, to make their roads fixed. That is why they are demanding. So most of them are calling that the government should come and fix their roads or face their wrath by in the next general election. So, Mama, my ending come back cry.
It's a neat because to be our home. It's almost 500. No one that went cut up. I am who said chronicles to crime. I'm on the jail. I'm on the ever seen the until one who chronicles our corners on my yay. It's much jail. It's almost face to come no my.
So that is another resident over there demanding that their 500 cedis should be used to fix the road. As we speak, some people allege that there is this particular god on this stretch that is making the authorities not fix this particular road. That is why this road has been here it has been left abandoned. So let me give you a clear view of how the road is like. So from when you're coming from Ahoju roundabout through to Sokoban. There is a dual carriage road on this particular stretch. Once you get to the Daban main community, you realize that this road is cut short. And even from Ampami to the Sokoban community on the other side of the road has also been asphalted. But within the municipal or within the community itself, there is no tarred road. The roads are just deplorable. As you can see on your screens, it is muddy. There is no asphalt on this particular stretch. It's muddy. That is why the residents are demanding that the government comes to fix their road for them. Although we have an indication.
Emmanuel Bright-Kweku joining us from Ampami in Kumasi, giving us details of that demonstration by residents there. He will remain there, hopefully. The police and local authority will be able to resolve the situation. But as you can see, it appears that there is some traffic flow compared to what we saw when we joined him. You're watching the AM show. We'll be right back. When we come back, we'll be telling you more about the University of Ghana at 75. Do stay.
Welcome to another insightful installment of Drive Safe, where we learn how to drive safe, what to do on our roads, what not to do on our roads, so that all of us can prevent the carnage and stay alive, basically. Now, we're going to continue from where we left off the last time. But right before we get into today's installment, though, so you think you know. How much do you know about road signs? Well, look at this road sign and let's find out just how much you know. Now, at the tail end of today's segment, we're going to give you the correct answer, and you'll find out just how much you do know.
You have the indicator lights, or what we call the traffic gator lights, okay? Now, this works with what we call a flasher unit. The flasher unit is connected somewhere in the dashboard, that anytime you want to turn left or right, okay, you have to push your trafficator stick either up. When it goes up, then it means that you are turning right. And because of the flasher unit, you have the lights breaking and flashing, okay? You have others that are red, others that are orange, but once it's flashing, that gives you that information that this car is turning to the right. Or turning to the light. You may see others which are blinking, okay? And then others think that when you put on that emergency light, those are emergency lights, emergency flashing light, that means you are going straight. No, that doesn't mean that.
You mean those with the, in some vehicles with the triangle, almost like a warning triangle?
Yes, it's a warning triangle, and then others will say they are called double traffic gator. But no, it's an emergency light. That emergency light comes with a lot of information. If your car is not doing well and you are driving, if you have any problem, you shift to the outer lane and then you put on that emergency light, which will keep on flashing. So other road users will see your car and they will know there's a problem with it.
You're going through some kind of emergency situation.
Okay, then you have other situations where you have parked your vehicle and then you have those lights on. For instance, if you have a problem and then you have stopped at the bus stop and you haven't put on those emergency lights, the authority will have every right to come and clamp your vehicle away. Right. If you have a problem, put on those lights, let it blink, and when it's blinking, it doesn't affect the battery. It can blink all day, and you need to have a strong battery anyway. If you have any emergency, at least within 2 hours, when your blinker is on, it doesn't spoil anything. So that is the purpose. And then others also use
But even before you move on, I do know that if you are to leave your other lights on, I don't know whether it's the headlights, your battery could run down. It's happened to me
Yes, precisely.
When you leave that. So what are the differences? Because some people, even in such situations, don't turn these on because they are afraid their batteries will run down. I'm talking about the blinker,
leaving your headlights on consumes a lot of power. You know, when the vehicle starts, okay, when you start your vehicle, it's the battery that takes the power and distributes it to the alternator. So as you drive, the alternator will recharge that lost energy from the battery. So if you have a bad alternator, then it means that your battery will not last longer. Okay, so when you leave your headlights on, you are destroying your battery. But when you leave your trafficator lights on, it takes just, a little bit of your battery, but it shouldn't be on for 24 hours, at least within that short period that you would call for the emergency service.
You should be able to sort yourself out. So yes, that's the difference.
That is it.
Let's continue with what you were saying about the tail.
Right, so that is the emergency lights. The emergency lights, you can use it for driving like I mentioned. If it is raining and then you notice that no, others must see you well, and then it's an emergency situation, you can also switch it on, okay, whilst you drive gently.
So it's a bit hazy, and it's raining, and you're afraid that you are not so visible. You can turn on the triangular lights. What is the triangular sign in your car? Those warning lights.
That's emergency blinkers. Or you can turn it on. It is all to do with warning other road users of something either ahead of you, okay, or if you have a problem with your vehicle. So these are the blinkers. Then we have what is connected to the headlights. Whenever you switch on your parking light, we have the parking light also on at the rear, okay, which is red. Those lights, whether you turn on to the dim or the high, remains the same. It gives the vehicle behind you that warning that that vehicle in front of me has put on his lights, okay, and then that is it. So if we go over again, we have the reverse lights, we have the dim lights, we have the brake lights, which are powerful, we have the indicators, and then in Europe, when you're driving, we have another type of light which is brighter than the brake light. I see. Yes, when you put that light on, that gives a warning to other road users that the road condition is worse than what you see. Okay?
Wow.
Yes. So those lights are featured only at the right side, depending on where you drive in Europe, whether you drive a right-hand vehicle or left-hand vehicle, right? It points to a direction where you driving behind will know, look here, the road is terribly in a bad condition, and therefore you have to be careful. Right, you have to be very careful and follow the vehicle behind you. When it moves to the left, move to the left, move to the right, move to the right. So the tail lights, like you see, are also damp, they are deaf, but they communicate with you.
We started today's segment with So You Think You Know, and we gave you that image of one of our road signs. Do you think you got the answer right? Check out the answer. And that is the correct answer for today. At least together, we've learned something new. If you didn't know, now you know. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Drive Safe segment. Tomorrow, we continue with another installment from right where we are leaving off today. And don't you forget to drive safe, stay alive. Thank you for your company.
Benjamin Akakpo there with our Drive Safe conversation this morning. It's now time to welcome my guest in studio, Professor Clement Apa, co-chair of the University of Ghana 75th Anniversary Planning Committee, and Pascaline Songsori. Okay, I was just trying to put a English twist to your name, Song Sorry, is Secretary of the Anniversary Planning Committee. Thank you, lady and gentlemen, for joining me in studio. We've had a conversation about universities this morning, but this is on a good note.
Yes.
Yeah, because we've been talking about violence and all the things that don't excite us. It's now time to talk about what's exciting. And the University of Ghana is 75 years.
That's right.
That's a really long time. Way older than Ghana, isn't she?
That's right.
Yeah, let's talk about the university's journey and why it's important to commemorate 75 years after its establishment. That's to you, Prof.
It's 75 years of impacting the nation positively. 75 years of giving to the nation what it needs to develop in terms of research and research output. 75 years of positioning Ghana on the academic map worldwide. So I can tell you, University of Ghana professors and academics are respected worldwide. So Ghana has that. It's 75 years of attracting to Ghana important funding for research in various ways. So it is worth studying, 75 years of impactful service to the nation.
I like the way you put it. It almost sounds like you're writing a poem. All right. So I've seen the flyer of the launch. We'll be talking about that shortly. But tell us what's gone into deciding how to celebrate University of Ghana at 75. Let me come to you, Pascaline.
Yes, so the Vice Chancellor put together an anniversary planning committee, which started working, I think, at the beginning of this year or after the first quarter of this year. And we've been meeting. We met initially to put together a concept note to decide on what the theme of the anniversary should be, to look at even co-opting other people with special, areas to join the anniversary planning committee, setting up subcommittees, both for members from the main committee and also co-opted members, putting together the program itself for the launch. And then we want it to be an all-inclusive program, so we are asking the various employee associations, for instance, to propose programs that they want to be part of the, the anniversary celebration. So we've been very busy since we were inaugurated, I think, in March to start working. We've been discussing the things I've mentioned to put together a good program to ensure that everybody, is part of the
So if I get you clearly, this is not just for the student body, the lecturers, and the alumni, but you're thinking also about support staff and different people who make the university what it is.
Exactly.
I think that's commendable. That's a really nice way to celebrate the school. But what's the theme?
It's nurturing resilience, adopting technology, and embracing humanism. Nurturing resilience, adopting technology, and embracing humanism.
That's a really loaded theme.
Yeah. When you're 75.
Yeah, and it definitely will come from and you like to say, I have colleagues here who would insist that you add premier when you're talking about the University of Ghana. So let me just do this to excite them. The premier university in Ghana, the University of Ghana, is 75 years, and we're talking about the theme. You just heard it. It's a really loaded one. But what excites me more is the people who are going to be the main guests and main speakers for the launch, which will be happening next week, is it?
This week.
This week?
On Wednesday, 31st of August at 10 a.m. at the Great Hall of the University.
And Doc is saying this with a smile, so I'll just let him run us through who our guests are.
All right. So the main speaker, the guest speaker, is Mrs. Elsie Ado-Awaji, the second Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana. She is an alum of the university, a proud one like that. And on there we have the three statutory principal officers of the university, Mrs. Mary Chinuhesi, the Chancellor, her Ladyship Justice Josiah, Sophia Ekufu, the Council Chair, and the Vice Chancellor, the first female Vice Chancellor of the university, Professor Nanaba Apiamfo. These will be there to speak. These are the principal officers of the university, so they are there by statute, and then we have the guests. Of course, we're also going to unveil the logo for the day, a very beautiful logo designed by somebody affiliated to the university. And we're going to tell the world what we are going to do. As he said, this is not about the academics, this is not about the student, it's about the whole community and the whole nation, actually. And so when we begin to talk about the program lineup, we will point out, for example, that we're going to have guest lectures, not just by alum of the university, the regular ones to be there, but also have everyday people give talks.
Okay.
And we're going to have other programs that the whole country can participate in.
I like that. I like that. But what you let us know in due course what these programs are, or we know what the program lineup is, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. Yes, we have a number of programs lined up. The actual anniversary, UG turns 75 next year, which is 2023. So it's going to be a year-long activities that we are going to be having. As the Prof mentioned, we have keynote lectures. Of course, the university cannot do without a scholarly lectures because it's an academic institution. We have we have a science and technology fair, and most of the time when we say science and technology, we think about the science, but it's going to feature technological projects from the humanities as well. So for instance, we have students of the business school who are designing apps that can tell you the history of the university and things like that. We are going to have sporting activities. We are looking forward to having a marathon. Yeah. The children are not left out. We'll have sporting activities for the children. The university has a children's swimming team, the Legon Sharks. We are hoping that we can bring them on board for this. We have arts and culture events. You know, we have the School of Performing Arts. And they've churned out quite a number of people in the creative industry. So we're going to have a number of arts and culture events, musical shows, featuring the different genre of music. And we also have staff fun games. We're going to have our staff competing against, staff associations competing against each other. We have an alumni homecoming. And then, of course, what is an anniversary without a dinner? So
that's what I was waiting for.
Yeah, so there's going to be a banquet or a dinner, a fundraiser, well, not necessarily fundraiser, but an anniversary dinner where we can dine with our stakeholders. We are 75, so we are looking
you mentioned something that tickled my fancy, the children.
Yes.
The university has a basic school.
Yes.
Great. Yes. So you're incorporating them as well.
Yes, actually. So it's not just even about the basic school. It's about children in the community. So there are children in the university community who are not students of the. So we want to bring them all on board. If you go across the street, on the other side is the Star Village School. Just across the N4, I think that is it. Yes, we want to bring them on board. And with the swimming events, which will be spearheaded by the Legon Sharks, we want to open it to the whole country. Also, for children and for younger people, we are doing Tour Legon, where we invite children, students from wherever to come to Legon. And we're thinking that we show them how Legon is. And afterwards, we also want to hold seminars for them. Especially those who want to come to university, they need some inspiration. We want to meet them and speak to them. Yeah. And one last thing, the beautiful logo that we have, there's going to be a tour of the logo.
Okay, so that is
campus and across the country.
So what, are you doing like a 3D representation of it? Wonderful.
It will be unveiled on Wednesday, and it will travel.
And I don't want to sound like I'm patronizing, but this sounds really exciting to me. The Tour Legon bit, because you're trying to catch them young.
Yeah.
There's a lot of competition for the best brains. You know, this morning when we're having the conversation about the violence, a colleague of mine said, look, mind you, it's important that universities look good. Image is important so that they can attract the best brains. People usually don't see it like that. Universities are now more like businesses that require clients, and everybody wants the best to come to this. So We wish you all the best. Let me give you the final words, Prof, and I'll come to you shortly. I know you will need support from members of the old students groupings and all that, but your final words as we wrap up this conversation.
Okay, so I'd want to invite all alumni or current students or patrons, parents, or everybody who has some kind of affiliation with the University of Ghana. I want to invite you to the launch on 31st, and I'm doing this on behalf of the VC, the CEO of the university. Come on the 31st, come be part of this. And in the course of the year, just be part of the activities that will be organized, especially the one that says my UG Day. On that day, you wear anything UG. You take photos, put online. Let's feel that you are part of UG. Come and be part of this, and you'll be happy you did.
Right, Pascaline.
So to join I also want to extend a warm hand of a welcome or invitation to the general public, not just alumni. Join us. We have activities for everybody. Join us, celebrate, and also share the hashtag on your social media platforms. It's UG75. That is it. So want to see that trending. And everybody is invited.
Thank you for inviting me because I'm not an old student. Prof handled that, but thank you for extending it to the general public. But that's Prof. Clement Apa, co-chair of the University of Ghana at 75 Anniversary Planning Committee, and Pascaline Song-Sori, who is secretary of the committee. And we've wrapped up our conversation, but we'll be giving you more information. But the main thing is that the launch will be happening this Wednesday. Can people join virtually?
Yes.
On the University of Ghana's
Yes.
Facebook page?
Yes.
All right, you can join virtually if you cannot make it in person. But it's important that he mentioned why they have an all-female panel. For those of you who are worried, 3 of them are there simply by virtue of the positions they occupy. So don't worry, we are not kicking men out of the picture. Anyway, the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development continues to roll out measures to help Ghana deal with its depleting fish stock. The European Union Commission, leading the fight against illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing worldwide about 2 years ago, issued a warning that's a yellow card to Ghana because we risk being identified as a non-cooperating country in the fight against illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. In our latest Hotline documentary titled When the Last Fish is Caught, Richard Kojo-Nyarko goes back to investigate how Ghana is dealing with the issue. Do stay, watch this.
It's a chain work. We brought this bycatch from Marie. It's not frozen, just fresh. But the moment we brought it at ashore, it gets to rot. So we appeal today, those who will throw it away, the vessel owners, then they start freezing it to us. And this has created a lot of employment. Rather throwing it into the sea as waste or to pollute the sea. That's why it has created, we have brought it and it has created a lot of job. And cycle is not purposeful for Elmines. It's for the whole Ghana.
Justice Pry used to be in the cycle business. He sits on one of the canoes here at the landing bay at Elmina. Many thoughts about the collapsed cycle business flash his mind. The 54-year-old doesn't understand why his trade has been banned.
So unexpected, we have been bound not to go. So all these fish are being thrown into the sea, make so many people jobless. And for as time as today, about 10 months now, in fact, people are suffering.
Even though the Ministry of Fisheries has banned cycle, the illegal transshipment of fish at sea, the fisherfolk continue to agitate.
The fisherfolk say that the cycle has not really ended, even though they agree with the ministry that it's ended at the places, the cycle markets, but it has manifested in a different form. If you go to Tema, they say that they are landing the small pelagic that artisanal fishers are supposed to catch. And this to them is like robbing Peter to pay Paul. At
first, we believed that the Chinese relied on the larger fish, but today they compete with us for the smaller fish that we rely on.
Ifua Frama is a fishmonger here at Abazi. one of the fishing communities in the central region. She recounts vividly how the trawlers continue to land the fish that were once caught by the artisanal fishers. President of the Canoe and Gear Owners Association of Ghana, Nana Kweja, raises a similar concern about the cycle ban.
It has taken us so many years advocating for the Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development and the Fisheries Commission to enforce the law and stop the illegal transshipment at sea.
Even though he's been full of praise for the minister over the sanity she's brought to the sector, the landings at the Tema Port continue to worry him.
Credible and fearless journalism. That is what we stand for. Duty bearers and citizens know that they'll be asked the hard questions to bring out the truth. That is what we expect of us.
This then begs the question, where is your Dom Kwabena MP, Mr. Rajwa?
I won't discuss her.
But you can call it a tiebreaker.
In this instance, it is.
I become a member of the House once I leave the seat.
But you admit that at least the fairness in interpreting the rules, that makes it absurd.
No, it doesn't.
It is this commitment to tell truth to power that sets us apart, because we will hold the feet of leadership to the heat of accountability. Hello, welcome to PM Express. My name is Evans Mensah.
All right, so today I get to welcome Benjamin back. We need to wrap up the show quickly. Oh, Benjamin, why are you laughing?
It's been quite a show, hasn't it?
Yes, a great one.
Well, right before we go, retail prices of fertilizers have increased by more than 200%. There is a real threat to the availability of basic food crops in the coming months as farmers are unable to buy the needed fertilizers. Well, Farmerline is supporting farmers by making affordable fertilizers available to farmers through a discount program. We are inviting you to also support us by donating 10 Ghana cedis per or more to raise 1 million cedis to reach over 25,000 farmers this season. Simply dial *887 *4444# to donate. Your donations go directly to the farmers and directly towards food security in Ghana. And on that note, Bernice,
we end this edition of the AM show. We are grateful that you could make time to join us. Join us once again tomorrow at 6 a.m. Benjamin is here through to 10 a.m. Up next is News Desk. Do stay.